Your blue chip station. Money FM 89.3. Money FM 89.3. News headlines from the Straits Times.
Good morning, I'm Ziaul Raushan.
Right, I've been
Starting today, residents can book an appointment for
Yeah.
influenza vaccination.
That's a good idea.
No, to Facebook, to Facebook.
Oh. Oh, Steve, how do you feel, man? You must be just exhausted.
Beyond.
I mean, you've just been going.
Well, and then I've work. I mean, then I have work to do.
Yeah, of course.
I have work to do. Although I did. Yesterday was my best day. I get paid a decent amount of money to have lunch, drink wine, and talk politics.
There you go.
I do that for free.
I'm not even going to.
I do that for free.
Who pays you for that?
Thanks. No, but I do. No, okay. I give them a frame of how to think about it.
Just so you know, just in
I'm
case.
sure they take it all in.
Of course, they believe me. They
Like
So we're on air. Technically, the microphones are off, but you know, you just might want to be selective in what you say.
My favorite. I did TV, and it was US China. And one of the commenters, on the YouTube comments was, well, he didn't say anything new, but he says it in a way you can understand.
Yes,
There's value in there.
3, 2.
Like, hey, you know what? The comment was basically, he didn't say anything new, but he says it in a way that's easy to understand. Like, okay, I'll take that as a compliment.
Oh,
I don't know if it's an art. I don't know if it was I don't know if it was meant to be a slam or if it was meant to be a slam.
Never read below the line. I was like to tell you.
Well, no, but if you can, I always talk in sound bites, right? I mean, it's Biden's approach to China is compete, confront, and cooperate. Like, oh, now you got a way of thinking about it. I'm okay at it. My friend Ryan's great at it. But, it's this election, and my soundbite here, is it about mismanagement or mayhem? So it was mayhem. Ended up being mayhem. Democrats won the battle of the narrative. There you go.
Mayhem. As Paulie Warnock's calls it. Mayhem.
As opposed to June and July ham.
God rest his soul.
Yeah.
Steve, just.
Alrighty, bro.
I mean, I'll go. Where do you want me? Here?
You're good. I think you're good right there. Yeah, we'll frame it up once you get
here.
Yeah, pretty.
Because I like going here.
You can always either way. You can talk a little bit there. You talk to us. It's all good.
It's all about the Facebook Live.
When we get on, maybe put your drink down on the floor.
Okay, sure.
Just because.
Or I'll put it here.
Because we don't. Well, actually, they don't want it anywhere on the table in case it tips over. And
right. Neil.
Yeah. Neil's special. Well, his is
lidded up.
Mine's lidded up.
All right. Okay. How lucky do you feel, punk?
You're the only one who's ever knocked water over.
Which is why I'm so paranoid about it.
4 years, I haven't spilled a drop.
I know. I had neither until that.
Mine's lit it up.
Hang on. Let me concentrate.
All right, time check coming up.
Singapore's most influential radio station. Time check on Money FM 89.3.
9:04.
Weather.
Who is it?
And the Met Service is calling for rain throughout the afternoon today, and rain tomorrow morning. Our high is going to be about 32 degrees. The low is going to be 23 degrees. Enjoy your Saturday.
Traffic.
And there's been a vehicle breakdown on the AYE towards the MCE after Keppel Road entrance. Avoid lane 3. Another vehicle breakdown on the AYE towards the MCE after Clementi Road exit. Very heavy traffic on the CTE towards the AYE between Angmor Kiel Avenue 5 exit and the PIE Changi exit. How are we doing on the causeways? Woodlands, 28 minutes into Johor, 23 into Singapore. And at the Tuas Second Link, 31 minutes into JB and 18 into Singapore. Good weather, good driving conditions at the moment. Keep it safe and keep it right here on Money FM 89.3.
If you see anything on the roads that we might have missed, you can share it with us via SMS or WhatsApp at 8855-0893. But please send a message through only when you are safely parked. Helping you grow your money on Money FM 89.3. Money FM 89.3. Financial updates from the Business Times.
I'm Chua Tian with some of the market stories that made the headlines this week. US inflation cooled more than expected in October, offering hope that the fastest price increases in decades may have peaked. According to official data, overall consumer prices rose 7.7% on year, down from 8.2% in September. Core prices, meanwhile, advanced 6.3%, pulling back from a 40-year high. On the monthly basis,
Yeah, that guy, Dignity
CPI
Kitchen,
advanced 0.4%,
fabulous. What he's doing is
while core
fabulous.
consumer
Was that?
price index
The guy's
increased
coming on at 10:15.
6.3%.
Dignity Kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. I liked the way that looked.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I went there because it's where they had that thank you lunch for the Let's Take a Walk.
Oh.
And you should go there with kids. Boon King, right by Boon King MRT station, so you can drive there, whatever, walk there. Food was decent and very affordable too.
Don't they have a couple of those around town?
Well, he's got one in Hong Kong.
GDP fell 0.2%, making Britain the only group of 7 that has yet to fully recover from the pandemic. Households and businesses now face a bleak 2 years as the Bank of England and the government add to the cost of living crunch by tightening policy at the same time. The Bank of England, which has raised interest rates 8 times since December, says a recession is the inevitable price of bringing double-digit inflation under control. The slump could last until mid-2024 under one BOE scenario, making it the longest in records dating back to 1920. And finally, let's take a look at how the Singapore stock market ended the week. The Straits Times Index climbed 1.7% to close at 3,228 points on Friday as Asian markets rallied on lower than expected US inflation. The STI finished 3.1% higher for the week as it extended its winning streak for the 6th straight session. In the broader Singapore market, winners outnumbered losers 443 to 180, with 2.14 billion securities worth 1.93 billion Sing dollars traded. And that's your finance rep on Money FM 89.3. I'm Chua Tian Tian.
Those were your financial updates from the Business Times. This is Money FM 89.3, Singapore's most influential radio station. Saturday morning, only on Money FM 89.3.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Saturday mornings here on Money FM 89.3. Glenn Van Zutphen and Neil Humphreys with you all the way up until noon today at 9:08 on your mostly clear Saturday morning at the moment, but we're going to get a little bit of rain later on today here in the city-state. Neil, good morning, my friend. How you doing? How was your week? You're looking fine today.
Wow, so are you. Busy, doing all sorts of writing and bits and bobs, but otherwise all good on a very wonderfully temperate, cool morning.
Yeah.
I went cycling last night, and I was doing that thing. I was storm chasing in reverse. You know when you try to get out of it.
Isn't that storm following?
Whatever it is. I was storm chasing in reverse.
Storm running.
Yeah, running away from. You know when you occasionally get those beautiful, low-hanging, apocalyptic, War of the Worlds, the aliens are here.
And you know it's coming.
But weirdly, it didn't. I don't know where you were yesterday, but on the Sengkang Pongal side, very low, very dark, kept threatening, but never quite got there. But the whole time, it was the whole sort of, I'm cycling War of the World style to get out of those clouds. Fuchi Red, I got to get Fuchi Red straight away because she's put in a great comment. Morning, guys. How are you all doing? Hope that you all had a good week, or maybe not for you, Neil Humphreys. Now, I know we're not supposed to talk about different brands here, but anyone who follows the show knows exactly what I'm talking about. I have been complaining a lot about this. There is a certain jingle playing in supermarkets and petrol stations by a certain Pua Kang that if I hear it one more time, I will put a sharp object in my eyeball.
There's gonna be blood.
I'm starting to think that advertisers, many of whom make an absolute killing, these creative ad agencies, I don't know what they're taking, I don't know what they're smoking, but they all think we are nursery kids.
Yeah.
Because how often, you started me early, Fuchi Red, how many campaigns do we still have in the year 2022? Advertising campaigns that are like they're for children.
Yeah.
They're toddlers. I mean, they are infantile. And I'm saying this sincerely. We've got an online shopping company that has a similar one, and it's just repeated.
Yeah.
Every line, like we're all 4 years old. And you just think, are we that dumb? Are we that infantile? I know jingles are catchy, and that's nothing new. It goes back to the Mad Med days of Madison Avenue.
I remember jingles from my childhood from the 70s.
And so do I.
Yeah.
And so do I.
That were classics.
But that was the key. Yeah. They were classics. They were genuinely infectious, and the jingles were good. It wasn't just the same word repeated over and over again. That's not particularly impressive at all.
It's shocking to me. I have a lot of friends, as do you, I'm sure, in the advertising business here, that do regional and international ads and do great stuff. But the level, I would say, of creativity on the local ad scene is appalling. And I don't know how it can be. And I'm sorry if you're in the ad business. And if you think you have an award-winning ad, please share it with us. We'd love to see it. But in a city of 5.5 million people, a nation's capital, how can it be that the ads are just so bad when you've got so many ad agencies in town?
Well, I'll be even,
and like you say, infantile, like playing to some like 12-year-olds or something. Well, not even 12-year-olds, less than that.
And some could be
Boy,
genuinely
we are worked up today.
Yeah, I mean, right? I don't care. I'm going out all blazing today. It's a funny story. A few years ago, an acquaintance, I didn't really know this person, but was quite prominent in a prominent creative ad agency. It's a world I don't really get involved with, but they said, we've got this ad campaign for a very, very prominent private car company, shall I say, and we need to get these ads out really quick. 5-6 seconds ads, because they've got to play before you click off, those ads.
For sure.
That you're going to play before YouTube and whatever.
Yep. So you got to grab them.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't them. I see what you did there, but it wasn't them. It might have been their predecessor. So I was called into this meeting, this high-powered creative ad agency meeting. One guy was wearing a French beret. That's all I'm going to say. One guy had I had stepped into a sitcom. One guy had a cigarette holder in his mouth, but no actual cigarette in it. There were several Europeans and a couple of Singaporeans talking absolute rubbish. I have to say this. I come from a journalism, get it done, be quick.
Yep.
You want a 40-page supplement? I'll have it to you by the morning. Get it moving, get it done. Airy-fairy ideas. So on the spot, I started coming up with these ideas. Glenn, you thought I was Confucius meets Einstein meets whatever you like, right? Oh, that's great. That's brilliant. That's fab, man. That's great. That's brilliant. So I started.
Love your stuff, babe.
You love it, babe. More of that. Where's your beret? Where's your beret? They paid me, and they wanted it over the weekend. We need it now. We need it yesterday So I wrote 40 of these 6-second ads because it's easy. They're 6 seconds long. Again, you'd think I was Dostoevsky, right? This is great. This is fab. They paid me an obscene amount of money for a couple of days' work, and then subsequently, that company was sold, which I think was the whole bit behind this anyway. I think they knew this. Yeah. It's a racket. I know I'm alienating half of our fan base straight away.
Yeah.
But
and that's not the point. But honestly, if you look at ads in any other capital city around the world, and I'm not just speaking the Western world, even in Asia, you've got some really high end, amazing ads happening. And I'm sure part of it is budgets. I'm sure the clients don't want to pay, right? Because we know that people are pretty tight with their money here sometimes when it comes to budgets. But at the end of the day, if you want something interesting and quality and it's going to last, you got to pay a little bit of money to get some good creative people in on it.
Well,
and the agencies are here. They're just not
for
whatever reason being tasked to put out the quality.
I got to qualify it. There are some great stuff out there.
Absolutely.
Of course there is. Award-winning stuff,
Totally
really
agree.
good stuff, catchy stuff. No issues with that. But then when you see some of the ads we've had of late, and I just wrote it on Twitter this morning, I suspect that maybe that's where Fuchien saw it. When you go to Serangoon MRT, that's a hub for, is it 3 train lines or 2? But anyway, so when you're walking from one train line to the other at Serangoon, you've got that long travel
long corridor,
and that is a real captive audience. They put lots of big banner ads there. Your Amazons,
they're the same one in Adobe God as well,
correct?
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Your Amazons, your Apples, the big guys advertise there,
and they spend a bomb.
They do. Yeah. Well, they also have speakers, and so I've had the online shopping ad, and it just repeats. Yes, it's as annoying as that. And we know, it's the famous actor, but over and over and over again. And you can almost see people's ears bleeding. They just don't want to hear this anymore. So for every good one, and there are many, there's a few not so good.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know who it appeals to. That's my argument. When you're sitting at the meeting and you execute this campaign, you go, that's the demographic.
Right.
What, school children? What, toddlers? I don't know. But hey, what do you guys think? Money FM 89.3, Facebook Live page. I would genuinely love to know your thoughts
on
our ad campaigns.
If you can find or Google examples and put the link in our Facebook Live page, I would love to see what you guys all like and what resonates with you. And let's get a conversation going around.
I've been a part of some terrible ads myself. I will freely admit it. I will not name the names, but I have. So, glass houses and stones and all that. I know I've done some silly things as well.
Singaporeans deserve better. Deserve first-class advertising, first-class engagement by whoever the client is.
I agree completely.
Angela just walked in the room. Steve Okun's in the room already. And Angela Mancini just walked in.
Already commenting.
We'll be getting to them in just a few minutes. You can see him on the studio cam, those of you on Facebook Live. By the way, welcome to all of you, Aloysius and Chiren, of course, and all of our other friends who are with us on Facebook Live. Rob Salisbury joining us from down under again. He's back. The guy lives between
and he
here and there.
Sends me a message saying I've sent out the rundown he sends out the rundown before I do.
I know. He is on it. But anyway,
and speaking of rundowns, good morning, Stanley. Speaking of rundowns, great guest today. I have to say that
this is going to be a really fantastic
present
show.
Company included, of course. We've got Steve Okun and Angela Mancini coming on to talk about how Steve Okun got it completely wrong about his predictions. He hasn't got a microphone. He
does. It's just not on yet.
You just have to wait.
And I control it. I can fade him in and out at will.
Apparently he didn't. We'll get to that.
Neil, you are so good at winding up people.
I know.
You love
it's
that.
What I do. What I do. But 10:15, we've got an absolute beauty.
Yeah.
Our good friends at Let's Take a Walk. We did that charity walk with them. They had a thank you lunch and I went down. And it was at Boon Keng at Dignity Kitchen. To my ignorance and shame, quite a well-known social enterprise in Singapore. I was vaguely aware of, but I hadn't been there before. Not only is it a very good, clean, efficient, it's not really a hawker center, it's more of a coffee shop, right by Boon Keng MRT.
Yep.
The food is good. And very, very reasonable priced. I saw people coming out with very big portions of freshly battered fish and chips, and it was only $8-9. I mean, you'd be
not battered, not like beaten.
No, battered.
battered. Oh, okay,
yes.
Got it.
Proper fish and chips. Very well priced. I had the what did I have? I had the steam pot. I had the clay pot tofu. I think $6 or $7. Very, very good. And the whole thing is run by, managed by, cooked by folks with special needs.
That is the point of the story, right?
They're trained, and they get qualified.
Fantastic.
And Koh Seng Choon, the founder, who's a very successful businessman in his own right, he just set this up. He has training programs. They get certification. They have their dignity, hence the name. They earn, and he set one up in Singapore. He set one up in Hong Kong. He has these various other enterprises. It'll be a very good, uplifting story.
Nice. Can't wait. World Cup's coming up a week and a day away. And we're going to have Johan Buse from StarHub on to talk to us about how you're going to be able to see all 64 games in a variety of interesting engagement platforms, right?
Now, we had him on before.
Yep.
He was one of my favorite guests because he tackled the tough questions head on. How does a
costing and pricing
and how does a cable company adapt to the streaming era and so on? Very interesting to see what he has to say, because arguably this is the first World Cup that is entirely in the streaming era. So what are they going to do to get their eyeballs? Very interested to see, particularly in the World Cup, which, frankly speaking, Well, it's a struggle to contain your indifference at the moment to this World Cup.
Well, and that's a whole other story. I don't know if he wants to comment on that.
Well, I certainly will next week.
You will be talking about it at length next week. In our 11 o'clock hour, I'm really, really excited about our guest, Nurul Suhaila, who is the gold medalist at the SEA Games for Singapore in Silat. And she is so, let me just tell you, I met her at a Halloween party a couple weeks ago, and I thought she was a model or like some like glamorous, like a talent, as they call them here in Singapore, somebody I should have known from TV. Amazing. And then as we're talking, I'm like, so what do you do? And she told me she's a Silat player. And I Googled her, and you should see the pictures of her gold medal winning bout.
I remember when she won.
Is absolutely kicking on her opponents. This woman is tough as nails. Do not run into her in a dark alley and think that there's going to be mischief, because she will take you down.
Yeah, you buried the lead there.
Unbelievable.
What are you doing running into Silat champions in Halloween parties anyway?
I run in very interesting circles. You know that.
You do indeed.
But anyway, Nurul is going to be here in studio with us to talk about her gold medal and her training regime and what exactly, those of us that may not be super familiar with Silat, what exactly it is and how it's played. A wonderful martial art, of course, throughout Asia that lots of folks play. And 11:30.
Well, yes, this is a really good one. My good friend, the British High Commissioner, contacted me yesterday.
Oh, what a name dropper you
are.
I
just had to do
it's just shameless.
And she asked me if we could, it was a little last minute, if we could talk about the Remembrance Sunday ceremony, which I always would anyway, at Kranji War Cemetary tomorrow at 7:30.
For the Great Wars.
All of them. And lest we forget, this is organised by the British High Commission and the Singapore Armed Forces Veterans League. Very important to make that point. And she managed to arrange for us to get Commander Ashley Spencer, who's a UK defence advisor, an extraordinary career in his own right, by the way. This guy has served all over the world. He was involved with the evacuation of civilians in Libya. He was part of sea mine clearance, duties and so on and so on. So the commander will be coming on at 11:30 to talk about what's planned for tomorrow. And everyone is welcome. Can't stress that enough. It is open to all. The Remembrance Sunday ceremony tomorrow morning.
Every year they do this right around 11:11, right? The 11th hour, the 11th day.
Armistice.
The armistice, from World War I. And they do this at Kranji War Cemetery on the Sunday morning that's nearest. It starts at 7:30 a.m. It's done by 8:30. It's a very meaningful and solemn service just to remember. And on that note, if anybody has some time to watch All's Quiet on the Western Front, the newest version
on
of
Netflix,
it
right?
On Netflix, it is amazing about World War I, and it will make you will just be amazed at what those soldiers went through in World War I and in the trench warfare, and just how brutal it was. Every element of life and death there was just unbelievable.
Yeah,
but very well done. It's a German production. It's subtitled and dubbed in English as well.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I'm going to watch that. And if you really want to be depressed, watch FIFA Uncovered on Netflix.
It's on my
which has just been released. I watched the first episode last night. Impeccable timing. And it's just entrenched, deeply rooted corruption that goes back the best part of 50 years. It's really depressing viewing.
You have been obviously following football for years as a journalist. How has this been able to keep happening over the years with FIFA? I know that a number of years ago there was a kind of a huge scandal in clearing out, and people lost jobs, and the graft and corruption was identified. How is this still going? How's it still going on?
How does wanton corruption exist for so long? Money. It's pure and simple money.
But it's such a high visibility thing, right?
Okay, very briefly, because of the time. FIFA is its own state. It's like the capitalistic equivalent of the Vatican. It answers to no one. Yeah. It's a very small executive, a very small cabal, and they are running the biggest tournament on planet Earth by a country mile. Nothing else gets close. Not even the Olympics doesn't get close to the kind of audience shares that the World Cup gets. And until the 70s, you had this guy called Havelang, who was Brazilian, a Brazilian industrialist. it was never really corporatized. It was never really sponsored. And he got in touch with your good friends in America, the Coca-Colas of the world. The Coca-Cola sponsored the world.
Good friends. I love how you say that. As if I've got a hotline to the Coca-Cola company.
Coca-Cola got on board with the World Cup in the 70s. And they thought, hang on a minute, we have a license to print money here. And then it was the Coca-Colas, the McDonald's. And then what really happened, Adidas. I think the guy's name was Hassler, correct me if I'm wrong, but the German big boss of Adidas in the 70s, he saw the potential of television revenues. And that's where it really started.
In the 70s.
In the 70s, he bought the TV rights, the broadcasting rights from FIFA, and then sold it around the world. And that's when the real corruption started, where checks started being paid to Havelang and other guys to millions and millions of dollars. It's extraordinary. And has it changed? The World Cup's going to be in Qatar next week.
Because there's all kinds of, there's over the decades, all of these allegations, and I think some have been proven of the bribery that's happened for certain countries to win the games because they know how much money is available and all that. Is all that stuff still seem to be happening according to what people think?
There's ongoing investigations, so there's always the smell of corruption, but even the uncovering of the corruption is political. Let's be very frank. If you remember, it was I think it was New York Attorney General. Why? Because the US didn't win the bid, and they were so upset that when they unleashed their guns, they unleashed them wholesale. Why does the FBI, frankly speaking, care about this decades-long corruption within FIFA? Because America didn't win the bid. Russia did, and Qatar
you're
did.
so cynical.
And so they unleashed all their guns on the sport they care very little about.
Right. Well, that you can argue.
They went after it, but it worked. Fair play to the Americans. They did what no one else did, and they went after them all. They went after the guy in America, a guy called Chuck Blazer. They went after a guy in the Caribbean called Warner, because that's where most of it was. It was in the CONCACAF, North American, South American regions where the real corruption was going on. Because, very briefly, everyone has a vote. So it doesn't matter if you're Brazil or a tiny football association in the Caribbean, you have one vote. So what do? You buy those votes. So they targeted North and South America. And that's where the bulk of the corruption was. And the Americans, to their credit, unearthed it. They went for it and they got it done. It was down to the Americans.
Well, I know you're going to be talking a lot more about that next week on the show, and when we'll preface that toward the end of the show today. All right, folks, great stuff coming up. Angela Mancini, Steve Okun on our International News Review. We're going to talk, of course, about the US midterm election results, what that means for Singapore and Southeast Asia, and also a look ahead to the G20 summit starting in Bali this week. A very notable guest has said he is not going to show up. We'll talk to you more about that right after this.
Saturday mornings from 9 a.m. to 12 noon every Up to speed with all the news and information you need to confidently make the decisions for your business and personal finance. With the Breakfast Huddle, Your Money, 12 to 1, the Afternoon Update, and Prime Time. Every weekday on Money FM 89.3, Singapore's most influential radio station. Traffic.
And there's heavy traffic on the CTE towards the AYE between Ang Mo Kio Avenue 5 exit and the PIE Changi exit. And that's about it. Roadworks all over the island, as you would expect on a Saturday morning, so drive carefully there. Woodlands Causeways, 26 minutes into JB, 24 into Singapore. And on the Tuas Second Link, 29 minutes into JB and 17 into Singapore. So drive safely, eyes on the road and ears with us right here on Money FM 89.3. That was your traffic.
If you see anything on the roads that we might have missed, you can share it with us via SMS or WhatsApp at 8855-0893. But please send the message through only when you are safely parked. Saturday morning, only on Money FM 89.3.
International News Review.
Welcome back, everybody, to the show. Glad you are with us on this Saturday morning at 9:33. Steve Okun and Angela Mancini joining us for our International News Review. Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing?
Good morning. Good morning, GVZ. Good morning, Don Draper. And
thank you.
Great to have Angela here to class up the show.
Well, I did wear a T-shirt because I don't have an election T-shirt or a Money FM T-shirt, but
you did class up the show.
Yeah, there you go, right?
Definitely that.
All right, Steve, come on, let's get into it. How did it get it all wrong? How did you get it all so wrong?
Well, look, the election ended up not being a referendum on an unpopular president where most voters think the country is headed in the wrong direction, but it ended up being a choice. And I think the Republican governor of New Hampshire summed it up best. And he said the voters said, look, we can fix policy later, but we need to fix crazy now.
Right.
And so what happened? All of the crazies that got nominated by the Republicans lost. And it's because Donald Trump was so far out there. Chris Christie
was it all of them? Not all of them.
All the crazies.
All the
crazies lost. And what Chris Christie, the governor of the former Republican governor of New Jersey, said, he said, look, Trump lost in 2018. Trump lost in 2020. Trump lost in 2021. Trump lost in 2022. We shouldn't be surprised. We need to go in a different direction. Now, that's the big question is, will the Republicans go in a different direction after a midterm that they should have easily taken control of the House? And that's still even a little bit up for grabs and should have gotten the Senate back, and they won't.
Wow. Okay, that's an opener.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Angela, what is your take on it, Angela? We've still got, just talking about the Senate for a second, we've still got 3 states to go. The runoff could last as early as December. How has this election played out for you?
Yeah, I think so. Taking a step back, I think regardless of who actually wins in individual races, to me and actually to our clients, which have been coming to controllers asking, even in the week ahead of the election, I had conversations with people where our house view was, we're not going to expect to see a lot of political violence on the day, because even though there's a lot of guns, there's a lot of far-right extremists, but there's no call to action by a leader, most likely on the day. And I had clients say to me, that's wrong. It's going to burn down. Wow. Really expecting a high amount of political violence, a high amount of voter intimidation, and a high amount of claims of foul. Yeah. And even in close races, what we saw was clients conceded, Dr. Oz conceded. And so I think, kind of building on Steve's point, the takeaway here is toxic politics isn't working in the States. Candidates want to win. If the playbook of calling foul, throwing all the toys out and whatever isn't winning, again, we may stay as the U.S. very divided, very, entrenched in the kind of cultural issues, guns, God, gender, the rest. But the playbook of we're going to call foul, the legitimacy of the process that everyone was so worried about, I think it's a bit of a referendum on that. Well, and that's great.
Many people thought Joe Biden wasn't taking the right step by talking about democracy being at risk and all of that. And there were other things he should have discussed. But Angela, I just want to stay with you just for a moment on the gender issues, abortion and rights and things like that. That people were not quite sure, from the Democrat side, people thought those would be issues, but they weren't sure if the Republican voters or the independent voters would grab onto those. What's your take on how important those issues were at the end of the day?
I think they were important. I think they were, and Steve would have more of the actual data on it, but I think they were a rallying cry. They did get out the vote. What matters, as we know in midterms, is actually voter turnout. So I think they do matter. But I think, what's interesting again here is to Steve's point, like the crazies didn't win. We saw a situation where what ended up winning was the rule of law in politics and, some kind of legitimacy. So the concerns are, again, the clients have and business has around, is the U.S. a political risk? We never thought we'd say that a couple of years ago, right? But that's receded a bit, but it's not, we haven't finished yet. They're still counting. But what's extraordinary is we may still end up with a Republican House and Senate. We don't know. But having said that, this sense of palpable relief across the electorate and the business community, and Rupert Murdoch has spoken, right? Toxic Trump. And, if you look at the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, and Fox News, which I did yesterday, the ones he owns, it's all unanimous. It's basically, Trump is a loser. We're stepping away from that volatile, really inflammatory politics. And that's a good thing, regardless of the policies that come next.
When democracy was on the ballot, democracy won. So, for example, in New Hampshire, you have a mainstream Republican governor wins easily. You have a crazy get nominated for the Senate who's a Republican. He loses badly. So that when democracy was on the ballot, democracy wins. When abortion was on the ballot, abortion won. And you can look at Pennsylvania, New York as an example. Pennsylvania, you could have had a Republican governor, a Republican legislature that could have taken away abortion rights in Pennsylvania. They all lost. New York, where no one was concerned about abortion rights because you have a Democratic supermajority in the legislature. So abortion wasn't on the ballot in New York. Republicans did very well in New York because they knew abortion wasn't at stake there. So in those races where abortion mattered, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, then it helped the Democrats greatly. And so that was what really the takeaway was. Yeah. It was very idiosyncratic, and it helped the Democrats. It probably kept the Democrats. It did. The Democrats will hold the Senate, and the Democrats did way better in the House than they should have. And part of it was democracy, and part of it was abortion, and part of it was Trump, which kind of over encapsulates both of them.
Interesting.
Yeah. Steve, Angela talks about political risk and the potential possibility of political violence. I saw some guys being interviewed on BBC, and they would come through your word, the crazy element, and they said, if the result doesn't go our way, it's clearly fixed, and we want a civil war. Now, they are the crazy element. The point I'm making is there any risk of that? Will they accept the result this time around? Has the crazy element been neutralized?
There is less risk, for sure, coming out of 2022. And part of it is, look, Donald Trump is sui generis. You had all these candidates try to follow Trump's lead. They can't. Donald Trump, and he may not be able to do it anymore, but Donald Trump could talk about the big lie, and he could get people out to vote, and he could get all these lawsuits, and he could get insurrectionists to come to the Capitol. But all these other people can't. They're not Donald Trump. And so that risk is way down. You didn't see any violence. However, there are still probably about 150 House Republicans who denied Joe Biden's certification last time around and said they would do it again. So we are not out of risk when it comes to the presidential election. Most of the election deniers who ran for Secretary of State in the individual states who run elections, most of those election deniers lost. You saw them lose in states like, I think in Arizona and Michigan and Pennsylvania, but you may not see them lose in Nevada. So we're not out of the woods yet, but we took a big sigh of relief as a country. And this is the D's won, whether you're a big D Democrat or a small D democracy, both of those won in 2020.
Yeah, Angela, let's move this forward now to business, and we assume that there's going to be roughly a split Congress. We might get one or two either way, or a few either way, but generally it's going to be a split Congress from what we know today, which means in the past gridlock at the very probably mostly gridlock, not getting things done and everybody playing nice and trying to compromise. What do you see the signs of possible headwinds for business in Asia based on what may happen in the U.S. Congress for the next 2 years?
Yeah, well, definitely we're going to have gridlock. I think everyone expected that coming in, and I think the Biden administration's been planning for that. And as we know, whenever we have a divided Congress and in a second, after the midterms, the president tends to turn much more to foreign policy. And we're going to see that. In fact, we're going to see that. I know we're going to speak about it in a few minutes with the G20 kicking off in the next few days. But as it relates to business, I mean, a couple things. Again, the overlay I'd say here is the reduction in political risk in the U.S. and the reduction of uncertainty and the reduction of potential erratic policy getting. So the fact that candidates are not, we hope, going to continue to follow the playbook of let's win elections on really,
let's blow everything up.
Let's blow everything up.
Yeah,
the fact that's not what's happening now in the States is very, very good for business here. Again, you can have a conversation around policy and export controls and what we need to do to control inflation. But, underpinning all of it is if we're kind of back to some sense of normalcy in politics in the US, if we are, that's really, really good for business, right? So now we have to see what the U.S. is going to do, with the divided Congress. I think a couple things to think about, as I mentioned earlier before we came on the show, I was on a call a few days ago with Jake Sullivan, the U.S. National Security Advisor, and it was an on-the-record call. People can look it up on the Council on Foreign Relations website. But it was fascinating because he said he's the first national security advisor, probably in history, to think about supply chains every single day. Critical minerals, semiconductors, electric vehicle batteries, and things like that, right? So that's the one area. So if we think about policy related to supply chain, that hits square in the mark, the intersection for the US of national security and economic policy, industrial policy. And I think that's we're going to see, continued press on that.
One big exception. Yep. One big exception. Agree with that, but one big exception, and that's the debt limit.
Yeah.
Right. There's a rule, a law in the United States that the U.S. can only go into so much debt, and then Congress has to raise the debt ceiling. And always that debt ceiling gets raised, except one time it looked like it wasn't, and the U.S. got downgraded, and it sent the global economy into tremors. And now, with the Republicans controlling the House, if they do, and it looks like they will, if the Republicans control the House, they say, we will only raise the debt ceiling if you, Joe Biden, cut entitlement spending, cut Social Security, cut Medicaid. Not going to happen. And so the Republicans are going to hold the global economy hostage for non-related policy goals that they have. And if that happens, and if the United States looks like it could default on its debts, that will have massive consequences. So that's the number one thing that I'm going to be watching in what we call the lame duck session of Congress. So between now and when the new Congress comes in and the Democrats control both the House and the Senate, will the Democrats get a debt extension through to stave off the Republicans? And even most thinking Republicans say, let's get this done in the lame duck because we can't afford to have the country default. Donald Trump, when he was president, the debt ceiling was raised all the time. This is not and shouldn't be a partisan issue, but could have huge implications for everybody in the world if we, the United States, default. And that, unfortunately, is a thinkable possibility right
We'll just play that out for the benefit of our listeners. What are the repercussions if that happens in layman's terms for Singapore and Asia?
Anybody who's holding U.S. debt doesn't get paid. And most governments hold
U.S. treasuries.
U.S. treasuries. Yeah. So if the government can't pay its obligations to those countries and borrowers, it has huge implications because governments rely on that. The dollar is the standard. And if that goes away, what happens to the global economy? Everybody trusts the United States to pay its debts. And now we're not going to do our full, we're not going to have the full faith and obligation of credit from the United States. Unthinkable, except now it's not. So a huge issue, especially if you get a Republican majority with just 4 or 5 seats to lose. And there's enough MAGA Republicans who say, we don't care if we shut down the global economy. We need to think about what's happening here in the United States when it comes to entitlement reform.
The only thing I'd add, though, there is the political side of that as well, which is we are now more or less trying to side, although China's easing, post-COVID. So the number one issue that voters are caring about, besides, along with democracy, is inflation in the economy. The number one issue that the G20 is going to focus on, aside from climate change, is the inflation in the economy. So I just wonder if the MAGA Republicans saw that the playbook of really toxic politics, blow it all up, isn't working, how can they press for something that would blow. I mean, Steve's exactly right. It's a huge risk, but the likelihood, I would argue, would be smaller because I think the Republicans now are seeing they have to deliver something for the voters besides just blow it all up.
And the economy was one of the key issues, right?
And I bet that, again, if the seats they hold, the majority they hold is lower, there's perhaps more chance for some kind of negotiation on that.
What would be the priority of Republicans in the next Congress? Doing something for the voters that they campaigned on, or making the Biden administration look bad so that they got a better chance of the White House in 2024?
There is no Republican Party. That's that you got to get out of that mindset, right? So if the Republicans end up holding 215, 220 seats, right? Actually more like 220, they can only afford to lose 5 votes. And so you can forget the Republican Party. If you have 5 people, and there are more than 5 who don't care about the global economy in the Republican Party, Marjorie Taylor Greene would be, a point person number 1. They can hold the entire Republican Party hostage. So you can't be thinking, oh, well, the Republicans think this. There is no Republicans. It's 5 people, 8 people, 10 people who can control it. What do they think? That is why I don't think the United States is going to default, because I think there's enough Republicans who say, let's get this fixed before we take over, because after we take over, we know we can't control our caucus.
Yeah. But to Angela's point, does that have to change? I see post-election a real existential crisis here, not just for US politics, but for the world. They cannot keep getting caught up in what would be seen to be petty domestic issues. Semiconductors, supply chains, the rise of AI, climate change. These have to be front and center now, beyond the petty internal squabblings of the Republican Party, because otherwise the planet is going to suffer, the global economy is going to suffer. Are we going to have to see a shift away from that with the Republican Party?
That's the question. What is Donald Trump going to announce next week? And what's the politics of the Republican Party going to be? And then if he announces for his presidency next week, we don't know. He said he's got a major announcement coming. We don't think it's going to be that there's going to be a new Trump hand sanitizer brand coming out. Right? So he's going to announce for president. And if he does, then what does that shake up? And then you've seen for the past, since he became president, the Republicans in the Congress are afraid to take him on, with very few exceptions. And those who do get kicked out of the Republican Party, like Liz Cheney. So are they all going to go along with the same type of America first, make America great again? We don't care about the world. We only care about what happens within our borders. Then we're in trouble. So we have to watch this.
But Angela, to your point, it won't work, will it? Supply chain, semiconductors, these are real present in the now issues
I agree.
both America and the world.
I'd add something here, which is I think the U.S. voter doesn't care. I mean, they don't care about foreign policy. They probably don't care about, lithium and electric vehicles. They care very much with the price of their Thanksgiving turkey is going to be next week or in the next couple of weeks.
And the price of gas at the pump.
Inflation, very, very much. I think they're watching that closely. And, again, I think we shouldn't have so much of our political discourse run by Rupert Murdoch, but having said that, it is, and he's spoken. And again, I just think that the media narrative in the U.S. has shifted away from Trump. Fox News last night had a commentator on who said literally, it's okay maybe it's the time for us to look, quote unquote, at the good policies Trump, pressed, and move on to a different message and reach a broader base. So I do think there's going to be a bit of a shift in the narrative. But just quickly back to, Glenn, your point on what does this mean for businesses and what they can do? I mean, because I think it's important to make a note there. What we're talking to clients about is there's always going to be noise, right? It's either North Korea, it's US-China tensions, it's the US election. The point is, how do you parse through that? And that's then looking very specifically at your sector, your business operations, perhaps even your product, because if you're selling diapers, that's a lot less, problematic than if you're selling a specific semiconductor and the rest. But, looking at that actual, business application for you, mapping out the scenarios, looking at the triggers, because actually, for some businesses, 90% of this noise doesn't matter. I was having lunch with a client last week who's opening a factory in China this month, because the way that the cards lay out for him is that makes sense for them. So I do think there is, there's broad business impacts here, but also very specific ones.
For our last few minutes, we got to move on now, and we'll come back to election madness in weeks to come, of course. The G20 summit is starting in Bali this week. It is, by all accounts, probably the most strained G20 conference. 19 advanced emerging economies and the EU are coming together Vladimir Putin has said he will not attend in person. That was a big question, whether he would or not, but he may attend virtually in some sessions. Steve, what are you going to be looking for as they all gather in Bali this week?
The most important is the Biden-Xi meeting. I mean, the U.S. Tensions are so high right now. This is the first in-person meeting they've had since President Biden took office. They've met previously, and so the real question is, they're expected to meet on Monday. They're meeting on Monday, and the question is, will they be able to set a floor under the deteriorating relationship? That's the expectations are so low. Can we just keep things from getting worse? And if we can meet that, that will kind of be a victory. There's so much to talk about, that's on the agenda. Taiwan, Russia, nuclear war, maybe that might come up, right?
North Korea.
A bit, North Korea, so there's so much to talk about. Just set a floor. If we could do that, I think that, and Angela will go much deeper on this, businesses will have a sigh of relief that it's not going to get worse.
What are you looking for, Angela?
So I'd add to that. I mean, just to build on Steve's point, and then more broadly, let's remember both Biden and Xi are off almost immediately the back of really intense domestic political processes, right? So they finally have at least a window, a tiny sliver of sunlight of breathing room for both of them, right? Yeah. So we see this, you saw last night, overnight, the announcements about the potential, or the easing of COVID restrictions in China, just a little bit. But again, past that domestic process, now there's a little bit more movement that you can have, probably same on the US side. So I think Steve's right. I think it's great they're talking. I think, the G20, people say, is the G20 even, kind of worth doing, or what really comes out of big multilateral meetings like that? And there are some things we can talk about in a second, but the main thing I think are the bilaterals. And remember, I don't think we'd see Xi and Biden have the opportunity to meet if it weren't for the G20. They're not in a position to be able to reach out to each other, unilaterally to ask that. So I think it's good they're meeting. And
they'll be meeting in Jakarta, actually. They won't be meeting in Bali. They're in Jakarta at the presidential palace.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. So it's setting a floor. It's and it's as this call we had with the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, as he said recently, there's a lot of conversations that are happening between China and the U.S. that we don't know about in the media, right? Sure. That they're unlike the Trump years where everything was happening and you knew everything when it was the minute it was happening. And so he had cited conversations they were having about Ukraine. Also, they'd had them with North Korea. So actually being able to talk privately off the off media about what those red lines are, and just being able to put a bit of a box around that to reduce risk more broadly.
Yep. So Steve, finally, the red wave didn't happen. Ukrainian troops are making tremendous progress into Kherson. The COVID restrictions are easing in China. Might we be cautiously optimistic about this G20 summit?
I mean, cautiously optimistic that we can try and put guardrails around all the different crises that make up the poly crisis that we're facing. But look, we still have so many flashpoints, and Taiwan is out there. And Angela mentioned the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, as he was briefing ahead of the trip, he said, unprecedented, he said that the U.S. government will keep Taipei informed about the upcoming meeting. Now, of course, the U.S. always kept Taiwan informed whenever there were meetings in the past, but they never said it publicly. So now China comes out and says, this is egregious. You're violating the one China principle. And so you have so many flashpoints in the relationship that I will look, if you want the optimism, if out of this meeting, we set a floor and the U.S. and China say, we're going to resume climate talks because it's in both of our national interests and, of course, the world's interest for the two biggest emitters to be talking to one another. That would be a reason to get a little bit more optimism coming out of the G20.
Yeah, and I'd add a couple optimistic points more broadly. In conversations with some CEOs and CFOs this week at Big Roundtable, some of the potential issues were, don't miss the potential upside if we do see some solution to Russia-Ukraine coming sooner than we thought, and if we see the U.S. dodge a recession. So I leave that on an optimistic note.
There we go. We'll hope for the best. We'll, of course, keep our eyes on it. And thanks to both of you, Angela Mancini from Control Risk, Steve Okun from
wherever.
Everything that you do. I don't even know which thing to put first for you anymore.
Wait, but you don't mention my shirt.
He's got a great shirt on today. I thought you were giving a new title today.
Why don't you describe the shirt, since for those of us that can't see it on...
So last year I wore a shirt that was 26 years old. This year I'm wearing the shirt 30 years old. This is from 1992. This was the first campaign event I worked on with then Governor Clinton. We did a race to the White House. We did a fundraiser. We ran down Pennsylvania Avenue from the Capitol to the White House on the what would have been the path for the inauguration, which of course he then marched in about 7-8 months.
And
later.
What's your shirt say? What
Raced Bill Clinton for president? The run to the White House, and on the back it says, "I'm Bill Clinton's running mate."
And stay tuned next week because Steve's going to tell us how he keeps his white so white.
We'll give him a
30
title.
years.
We'll give the final word to one of our listeners for Steve's title. She calls him the Wikipedia with smarts.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you, Pim.
I don't even know what that means.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We'll enjoy having you guys back again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
International news
You're
review.
cruising through your weekend on Money FM 89.3.
Heavy departure traffic at Woodlands Checkpoint due to tailback from Malaysia. Delays are expected, and travelers are advised to check traffic conditions before embarking on their journey. Motorists are reminded to maintain lane
vaccination with more than 580 general practitioners through a government health appointment system. At book.health.gov.sg/flu, residents will first type in their postal code to see a listing of participating clinics nearby. Participating clinics are on the Community Health Assistance Scheme, which provides Singaporeans with subsidized medical and dental care. Residents can then book a slot via the appointment system at the clinic of their choice. Anyone aged 6 months and older is eligible to receive a flu jab to reduce the risk of infection and its complications. A ground-up industry transformation map by the Singapore Retailers Association will support retail businesses in creating feel-good and personalized retail experiences and help position retail as an attractive industry by 2025. The roadmap, which was developed by the SRA in collaboration with more than 50 companies, focuses on 4 pillars: promoting the diversity of shopping experiences in Singapore, supporting retailers in experimenting with retail experiences, building connections with customers, and building an ecosystem for collaborations. To avert a repeat of the impact of COVID-19, the world needs to start preparing for the next pandemic now. This is even amid the backdrop of a difficult global environment, with issues such as inflation and the Ukraine crisis competing for attention. This, according to the World Health Organization's COVID-19 technical lead, Dr. Maria van Kerkhove. Speaking in an interview with the Straits Times on the sidelines of the 7th World One Health Congress, she said countries need to leverage the trauma of COVID-19 right now to gear up for the next threat, and outlined 5 C's that need to be in place. These are collaborative surveillance to pick up new diseases, emergency coordination, such as national action plans for prevention preparedness, access to countermeasures such as fast-track research and development, community protection, and safe and scalable care. Australia is facing a fresh COVID-19 outbreak from new strains that are surging across the country, just as the summer holidays are set to give a much-needed boost to tourism and hospitality. Less than a month after Australia ended a mandatory 5-day isolation for COVID-19 cases, there have been calls to reintroduce restrictions such as compulsory mask wearing. The country's chief medical officer, Professor Paul Kelly, said this week that an outbreak involving Omicron variant XBB is already underway. He said lockdowns are unlikely, urging people to ensure they are fully vaccinated and to stay home if unwell. A South Korean police officer who was being investigated in connection with the Halloween crowd crush that killed more than 150 people in Seoul was found dead on Friday. The 55-year-old, identified only by his surname Jong, was found dead at his home in the South Korean capital. An intelligence officer, Jong had been working for the police station that oversaw the district of Itaewon, an entertainment area in Seoul where the crush took place. Crypto exchange FTX is set to start US bankruptcy proceedings, and Chief Executive Sam Bankman-Fried is to step down after a liquidity crisis at the cryptocurrency group has prompted intervention from regulators around the world. The distressed crypto trading platform had been struggling to raise billions of dollars in funds to stave off a collapse after a wave of withdrawals. The company said in a statement on Friday that FTX and its affiliated crypto trading fund, Alameda Research, and approximately 130 other companies have commenced voluntary Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings.
Those were your news headlines from the Straits Times. This is Money FM 89.3, Singapore's most influential radio station. Time check on Money FM 89.3.
10:05.
Weather.
The Met Service Singapore is calling for thundery showers this afternoon over much of the island. Our high will be 32 degrees. The low overnight tonight will be 23, and we can expect morning thundery showers on Sunday. Do try to enjoy your Saturday and be safe out there. That's your Money FM 89.3 weather.
Traffic.
And we have roadworks all over the island and no accidents to report, which is good news indeed. Just a vehicle breakdown on the PIE towards Tuas after Tampines, another on the KJE towards the PIE before the PIE Tuas exit, and a third on the PIE towards Tuas before Clementi Avenue 6 exit. Avoid lane 4. On the causeways, let's have a look. Woodlands, 24 minutes into Johor Bahru and 15 minutes into Woodlands. And at the Tuas second link, it's building. 32 minutes into JB and 20 minutes into Singapore. Keep it safe, folks. Keep it calm. And keep it right here on Money FM 89.3.
If you see anything on the roads that we might have missed, you can share it with us via SMS or WhatsApp at 8855-0893. But please send the message through only when you are safely parked. Helping you grow your money on Money FM 89.3. Money FM 89.3. Financial updates from the Business Times.
I'm Chua Tian Tian with some of the market stories that made the headlines this week. US inflation cooled more than expected in October, offering hope that the fastest price increases in decades may have peaked. According to official data, overall consumer prices rose 7.7% on year, down from 8.2% in September. Core prices, meanwhile, advanced 6.3%, pulling back from a 40-year high. On a monthly basis, the overall CPI advanced 0.4%, while core consumer price index increased 0.3%. Both increases and monthly rises were below the median economist estimates. Still, inflation remains much too high for comfort for the Federal Reserve, who had earlier this month indicated that rates will likely peak higher than what policymakers had previously envisioned. And the UK economy shrank in the third quarter, marking the start of what is expected to be a protracted recession. GDP fell 0.2%, making Britain the only group of 7 economy that has yet to fully recover from the pandemic. Households and businesses now face a bleak 2 years as the Bank of England and the government add to the cost of living crunch by tightening policy at the same time. The Bank of England, which has raised interest rates 8 times since December, says a recession is the inevitable price of bringing double-digit inflation under control. The slump could last until mid-2024 under one BOE scenario, making it the longest in records dating back to 1920. And finally, let's take a look at how the Singapore stock market ended the week. The Straits Times Index climbed 1.7% to close at 3,228 points on Friday as Asian markets rallied on lower than expected US inflation. The STI finished 3.1% higher for the week as it extended its winning streak for the 6th straight session. In the broader Singapore market, winners outnumbered losers 443 to 180, with 2.14 billion securities worth 1.93 billion Sing dollars traded. And that's your finance rep on Money FM 89.3. I'm Chua Tian Tian.
Those were your financial updates from the Business Times. This is Money FM 89.3, Singapore's most influential radio station. Saturday morning, only on Money FM 89.3.
Good morning and welcome back to the show. Glenn Van Zutphen and Neil Humphreys with you up until noon today. It's 10:09 on your Singapore Saturday morning. Weather looking good so far. We are expecting rain later on in the day. Looks like they might be getting a little bit out at Jurong Island at the moment, but other than that, clear skies across our fine city-state. Neil, I feel like we've just had an entire show in 30 minutes with Steve Okun and Angela Mancini.
Let's give them a shout out again. Steve Okun, Angela Mancini, talking American midterms and more importantly, the repercussions for the region, Singapore specifically. I thought they were great. I thought it was fabulous insight. I really did.
Well, we all know that, what happens in the U.S. will absolutely affect us in this part of the world. And interesting that this meeting between Joe Biden and President Xi of China on Monday in Jakarta, as Steve put, he just wants them to come up with a floor so that the relationship between China and the U.S. can't get any worse. I absolutely agree. That would be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, that's the one thing I imagine wouldn't be too affected by the results of the midterms, because that's one of the few bipartisan agreements, isn't it? The US's current stance on China. So there's broad agreement on that. But of course, like the guy said, Biden goes in with a little bit more of a swagger or a spring in his step, with a little bit more domestic security.
Not having won, but not having lost too badly.
Yeah. Although I will say this, objectively, I watched some of these speeches in the days leading up to the midterms. I kind of hope he doesn't stand for a second term. Come on. I mean, I saw Steve's point on social media. What is your population? 300 million plus? Is there no one under the age of 75 eligible for either party at this point? I mean, what? Come on.
Well, we have had these discussions in the U.S. for decades, I assure you. Can we not do any better than whoever the current candidates were in any given election, given the fact that there are so many people? But
I'm not saying they should be kids, but increasingly you're seeing heads of state, successful heads of state in their 40s, doing terrific jobs.
I totally agree with you. I think it's time for a younger generation of politicians. And, Joe Biden has lived a life of service and he has done everything literally for the country, whether you agree with his politics or not. Donald Trump and his supporters think they're doing the right thing for the country. And they have their own set of beliefs, and that's the way America runs. but can we please get somebody in their 50s, somebody that's actually in touch with what's going on in the world today and the mindset around climate change and business and geopolitics?
Couldn't agree more.
Getting along in the world.
Could not agree more.
Can we not get somebody to run the biggest economy in the world that has business sense? That's I don't know.
Could not agree more.
It's mind-numbing.
I'm so glad Angela made that point about the broader issues about semiconductors. I listened to this podcast. I'll put the link in. It's terrific, called The Rest is Politics. I've mentioned it before. It's a former Conservative MP and Tony Blair's old spin doctor, Alistair Campbell. So it's kind of left-wing and right-wing. But they talk international politics. Yeah. And Rory Stewart, former Tory MP, he made a point similar to Angela this week, that the problem with populism and what's happened in the last few years, it's become too jingoistic, too insular, too inward looking, make America great, make England great, bring back. It's been across the world, right? Brazil, Britain,
Argentina,
Europe, Philippines more recently, and so on. The unbelievably pressing issues are the rise of AI. They are saying that it's a matter of 10 to 15 years where jobs for doctors will be replaced by AI. It's already happening. They're already doing it in the US in certain things. That no one's talking about that it's going to blow the existing economic global framework as we know it out of the water, because AI will do so many jobs within the next decade or two. It is happening. No one's talking about that. The supply chains that Angela correctly mentioned have also blown the existing economic framework to smithereens. Right. They're starting to talk about that. And then the biggest elephant in the room is climate change. They are three of the biggest issues right now. And you're right, and Angela's right. It's the price of turkey at Thanksgiving. It's the price of the gas at the pump. This is not unique to the US. This is a global phenomenon. We vote with our pockets. We always have. But unfortunately, we're reaching a point we just can't anymore. We just can't. And when Biden meets up with Xi, they're going to talk about climate change. They're going to talk about supply chains. We have reached a tipping point.
And we need politicians that are insightful enough and forward-thinking enough to understand, yes, it's important how much you pay to fill up your car at the petrol pump. But, if we don't solve these other issues, none of that's going to matter in the next generation. None of it.
Absolutely.
The world will not be habitable or whatever. Systems will break down or you won't have a job or whatever.
We're already seeing migrant refugees. We're already seeing climate refugees. It's already happening. But look, keep it upbeat. We're talking about it.
Speaking of which, what's going on in the UK with your new prime minister? I haven't heard anything about him this week.
Do you know what? I don't care.
Come on.
No, I'm just kidding.
He's had, two whole weeks in office now?
2 whole weeks. He's still there.
Something like that. He's still there?
Look, I mean, literally, he has followed a metaphorical lettuce. So it doesn't really matter. He's considered, you know what? It's a bit of a stretch. It's kind of Biden after Trump. He's just seen as a little bit of economic and political stability. You know, the other thing that's happened this week, Matt Hancock, if you're not familiar with him, that's fine. He was the health secretary during COVID. Okay. So he was the face of COVID every day. You know, those press conferences like the ones in Singapore. He was the face of UK's task force. Not very popular because they consider that hundreds of thousands of people died who shouldn't have died for all sorts of reasons. Do you know where that man is right now?
No.
One of the most reviled politicians in the UK and still a Conservative MP is on a reality TV show called I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. He is in the jungle of Australia right now, eating cockroaches and private parts of kangaroos as part of this reality TV show. That is where the former health secretary, COVID czar of the UK is right now. Tell me that politics isn't broken, my friend.
Anyway, hey, thanks to all of our great Facebook Live friends who are with us. Don Pierce joining us, commenting, climate change will negate the advances of AI, and any fixing of the supply chain. Well, we'll see about that,
possibly.
Don.
I mean, I don't disagree with Don that climate change is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on our list of priorities. I don't disagree with him on that at all.
Hi to Athanasius. Welcome today. James So's joining us. Steve Stein and Ann Hockett. Great to have you guys with us today.
Yeah, and a quick shout out to Athanasios because he gave a talk, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about the Kranji War Cemetary.
That's right.
He has a book out on it, published by, full disclosure, my publisher.
Yeah.
Very good book. I have it. And he just mentioned that, yes, if you can go down to the service tomorrow, he'll be there. He'll be laying a wreath on behalf of the children of Kranji's architect. Have you been there, the Kranji War?
Yeah.
The architecture is fabulous.
It's just it's so stunning.
It's got those pillars to represent the different arms of the armed forces,
right?
But it's shaped like a plane, which represents obviously the air forces. It has tributes to allied forces, but is often forgotten to Singaporean, Indian, regional forces,
the Malay regiments, the Indian regiments,
and of course Singapore's early presidents are buried there. That was going to be the president's memorial area, and then it just kind of got jettisoned. If Athanasios, yes, sorry, I apologize. Athanasios, yes.
Athanasios.
If you're still listening, could you tell us, and you're probably not after that, if you're still listening, why was the president thing stopped? I did read up on it, and I've since forgotten. They buried the first couple of presidents there, and they haven't continued with that.
Interesting.
So let us know why.
Good.
Athanasios.
Sarah Johan joining us, June Liu, Chris Cho. Great to have you all with us today on the show. Let's get into our next guest, because I think this is really going to be...
This is a positive, uplifting story for a Saturday morning.
And Neil, you were recently over at the Dignity Kitchen for a thank you lunch. The Dignity Kitchen is a hawker center style restaurant run by people and also for people with special needs. It's a social enterprise and comprises the Dignity Kitchen Singapore and Dignity Kitchen in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Workers with special needs are trained and qualified to work in the kitchen, a kind of a coffee shop with great food, etc. And let's bring on now the executive director and founder of Dignity Kitchen, Koh Seng Choon. Welcome to the show today. Great to have you with us.
Good morning, gentlemen. And thanks for having invited me to your program. I'm a listener, by the way.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Seng Choon.
And yeah.
Well, let's get into it. Just give us, how did it come about? What was the inspiration for Dignity Kitchen? How did you set it up?
I started Dignity Kitchen in actually 2006. Or to be truthful, it's actually 1994. I lived in UK for many years. Actually, my background in UK is quite unique. I'm a foundryman. So basically, in 1994, I decided to come back, return to Singapore. And I realized in Singapore, you don't see beggars, you don't see homeless people, you don't see disabled people in shopping center, and you don't see stray dogs. So if you go to Jakarta, Malaysia, whatever it is, you see. And that's the start of the journey. I went to look out and find the answer, that's all. And when I find the answer, I realized there is another part of Singapore that people don't see or people don't want to see. And that's how I started this. So I did something called Dignity Day. One day a month, I go and do something good. I work with elderly at the Void Deck. I brought them out. Then I work with prisoners in Yellow Ribbon. Then at 2006, I decided I can do more. I can do more. I can help people. And that's I started. By 07, I look for people. Right. 08, I look for place. 09, I look for money. And I realized going around Singapore government agency, it doesn't help because it's not their fault, because social enterprise is something very new. If you look at 2006, you are in the money business, right? And 2006, who knows what is a social enterprise? The only thing that people know is Grameen Bank, Muhammad Yunus. So I decided that I want to set up a commercial entity with a social vision. And the idea comes with 4 basic ideas. First, I want to scale them. You see, giving people money is not the answer. I told Neil the other day, you must scale them. You give them a skill. And cooking is a skill. But
teach them how to fish. Teach them how to fish. Don't just give them fish, right? Is the thing. So that's a fantastic story. We really, really impressive.
But the thing is, nobody ever tried to build a school for hawkers. You see, at that time, I didn't know hawker can be UNESCO, right? So I decided that if I want to help them, I must build the most important part of our society, hawkers. So I spent 2 years writing Kopi O, Kopi C, Kopi Kao, Kopi Ko, the entire hawker trade. It took 22 subjects. Then I get the government of WTA to approve it. So you're looking at the only hawker trading program in Singapore, or in the world for that matter.
Seng Choon, if I can just jump in real quick, I'm dying to know how many folks are actually benefiting from this. How many, perhaps, are you currently working with, or have you worked with over the years? How many folks have come in with special needs and really gained a skill and gained some, gained a living from this?
Yeah, we actually skill these people, train them, get them job, and then integrate back to society. As of what, 12 years now? 12, 13 years of doing this. Just the training of people. We have done over 3,000 over in Singapore alone.
Wow.
Right. We get them job, and come on, they're not fancy job. They're just chopping vegetable in the garden, and they serve the people. We also do something quite unique. Every day we go around Singapore and we bring old people from the nursing home for lunch free of charge. So when Neil was down here, you see a lot of old people, right? We bring them here for lunch. Why? Because if you ever go to nursing home, ask them what do they want. They want to get out.
Yeah.
So basically, a bus pick them up. For October 10 to 2020, we've done over 300,000. The third thing we do quite well is meal boxes. Every day we give meal boxes out to people, right? Both in Singapore and Hong Kong. Okay, I must explain. I must qualify this. I'm not giving people to our needy people. I give to the working poor. There are people who clear the toilet, clear the garbage, and all this dirty work. In Hong Kong, is doing cardboard boxes. I told them, I can't give you money, but I give you one thing: dinner every night. And every night, I must have done 1 million meal boxes by now. And every morning, I also give out.
So let me just clarify that. So you've trained more than 3,000 people with special needs, given them jobs, given them their dignity. You've given more than 300,000, I think you said 300,000
elderly for lunch free of charge.
Bring the elderly to your hawker centre free of charge. You've probably given out more than 1 million meal boxes to the needy and the working poor. How do you have any money left?
Yeah, how do you pay for this? Where does the money come from?
No. To be honest, the clever part is that we have sponsorship. When I first started, I chip in my money. But you see, the reality of people is that they like to see, and then they will help you. So the same as Hong Kong.
Who are your big donors? Who are your big benefactors? That anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Okay, starting is all my money. I lost at that time, lost about $1,000 a day. I lost 1,000. I remortgaged my office. I took out $500,000 loan. I kept going for the first 5 years. Eventually, at third, fourth year, I break even. Because people is like, you know what people are like? They will not give you money blank. They like to see you doing something. So basically, what we do, like our trainees, now my trainees are sponsored by various organizations, various individuals. By the way, one meal box is $4. Come on, don't tell me anybody cannot buy a meal box, right?
Wow.
So basically, it's about showing people what you do, and people got sponsorship. But don't forget, this is actually revenue generating. This is $3.9 million business last year, and it's profitable over the last 3 years. Now, why? First of all, we sell food. Come on, guys, you come and eat my food, I make money. You call me up, you say, I want laksa. You tell me up, Mr. Koh, I want 6 laksa. I do delivery by wheelchair. Then the third thing I do is organize event. I get corporate CSR events. Every company now has to do CSR. So there's corporate event. By the way, my site is used as for those listeners who are not married yet, my site is actually a wedding site. You will never forget your wedding because you can drive your wedding car right into the hawker center. And imagine, I tell you, the wedding is buffet is not by tray, buffet is by hawker store. And when you go to a Chinese wedding, everybody look at each other. This one, I let you do the solemnization. The wedding is all inside a hawker center. So we're creative.
Seng Choon, you are a character. I love it. You are amazing.
I told you, right? I told Glenn. I said, we've got to get this guy on the show.
Neil's like, you are never going to believe this guy.
He's an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. He's a social entrepreneur, enterprise guru. And if you're just joining us, we are talking animatedly with Koh Seng Choon, the executive director and founder of Dignity Kitchen, both in Singapore and Hong Kong, a genuinely inspirational Singaporean who recently, I must add this, was awarded the highest accolade in the F&B industry in the world. You was part of the World 50 Best Restaurants Champion of Change Award. Congratulations for that.
Yes,
Tell us what it's about and how you won it.
Okay.
How did you win that one? How did you win that?
That was easy. Honestly, I didn't know. I tell you the joke.
You didn't know?
I didn't know. What happened was they called me up. This lady called me up. They said, Mr. Koh, we want to nominate you for the World 50 Best Restaurant Champion of Change. Then she explained to me that among all the thousands of best chefs in the world, they nominate 3 or 4% every year. And the queue is of hundreds of people that actually been nominated. So I thought it's a scam. Nowadays, know what it is, right? So I thought, okay, like, I mean, if you say whatever you say, I listen. The second phone call is more interesting. Mr. Koh, you've now been finalized. You are the finalist. And what happened? There's £20,000. That was the inspiration. Then Mr. Koh, we'll fly you here. I said, you got to be kidding. Where is this place? London, Billingsgate. I said, okay. And then from there on, I believe her. Then I went through the nomination, the interview. Then finally, they say, okay, you're one of the 3 winners. One is because of Luanda. The other one is Ukraine. This one is the only Singaporean to ever achieve the champion of change worldwide. By the way, it's £20,000. I'm going in for the money, not because of the status. The money is very good. But the money is very good. It's for us to bring more meal boxes and all that to everybody.
Absolutely.
So this is something that I don't think not many Singaporean company has even been nominated for the World 50. So I think it's quite an honor, actually. I quite
it's wonderful.
I tell you what, when I go to London, I've never tried so many good food. Seriously. And I know Scotch egg can go for £20.
Yeah, they've got good food in London. It's a bit of a myth that London has no good food, but it's not as good as your food. And there's another thing I want to talk about because, Glenn, it doesn't stop there. I went to Seng Kang Hospital recently and I saw one of your stalls. He also has this thing called Dignity Mama Singapore. Dignity Mama stalls, which help mothers with their challenged youths, their challenged children to have work and dignity. It's fabulous. Tell us a bit about that briefly.
Okay. You see, my purpose is to create job. I want to create job for these people. So the most famous one is the Dignity Mama. Now, Glenn, maybe you all don't understand this. When a mother gives birth to a child of disability, everybody focus on the child. Wrong, you focus on the woman, the mother, and the caregiver. She felt that she's the one responsible. So I told myself, there's only a solution. Put them together and sell second-hand book. So 10 years ago, we started with the first one at Koh Teng Kwat. Second Hospital. One, NUH, Ng Tien Fong, Seng Kang, Changi. In Hong Kong, is Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Cheng Yi MTR station. There are about 40, 50 people employed selling second-hand book. And it's a recycling operation. Come on, guys, you got storybook at home, right? Don't throw away. Just give it to us. We clean it. If we cannot sell in Singapore, we export to Myanmar, for the third world country, because Singapore books are very good.
Wonderful.
So that's how it starts.
Where can they donate the books? Just briefly, where can they donate the books?
Okay, there are 5 hospitals. Koh Teng Kwat, NUH, Ng Tien Fong, Seng Kang, Changi, and Dignity Kitchen. Just drop it off. Okay. Just drop it off. We clean it and we sell it. Right.
Beautiful. Seng Choon, I want to ask you a broader question because, look, Neil and I have been in Singapore for decades now. Neil over 2 decades, and I've been here almost 20 years. And one thing I've noticed is many families seem ashamed or very shy about bringing their physically challenged family members, whether they're children or adults, out into public. Now, I think in recent years, I've actually seen more of it happening, which is great. Right. But what would you say to families who are feeling uncomfortable about bringing their physically or mentally challenged family members out into public? Because you've lived your life now helping people mainstream. What do you say to those folks?
You see, I live in UK for many years. Yeah. There was an incident in a place in Switzerland called Interlaken where I was there for a while.
Yeah, beautiful lake there. Yep.
Beautiful there. I saw a kid got melted down. And what the trees did was very good. They give ice cream, they give chocolate. I like that. The same thing happened in the shopping center in Singapore. And you know what happened? That was one of the reasons why I want to do Dignity Kitchen. Everybody take out their handphone. I think it doesn't make sense. The mother is already fully stressed and really. Then I told those guys, please don't do that. Right.
Yeah.
That was one of the.
They're making it a spectacle, making them feel bad about it, right?
Yeah. Most family is about kids. It's very tough where they go out and then when the kids go funny, go meltdown. The family, because I should know, I have so many of them in my mama's store in Dignity.
Of course.
Kitchen. So that is one thing we must tell people. Bring them out. Let them come up. That's just what you do. Can I show you Dignity Kitchen now?
Okay,
Yeah,
sure,
please.
quickly.
Yeah, let's take a look. And we're talking to Koh Seng Choon, the executive director of Dignity Kitchen, both here in Singapore and also in Hong Kong. It is a place where folks with special needs can learn how to do simple jobs. They are well trained and they are cooking. They are doing everything within his restaurant. His current restaurant here is in Boon Keng. And here we go. There is the outside.
This is the external.
Yep.
Now look at the mural. The mural is painted by people who are very good artists, but they are either very starting out. You see, you may be very good singer, very good artist, but nobody give you a chance. So I told the kids, you come here and draw, and people will know have a portfolio. Right, let's go inside Dignity Kitchen.
So take us inside Dignity Kitchen.
Now is 7 hawker store. Right. So you see people like, okay, we are not here to cook recipe. Let me show you the recycling operation first. We recycle coffee powder. We recycle enzyme. We produce enzyme for washing. So here, every day, all the oranges, all the pineapple skin, we melt water, we put sugar. All these are the stores, every one of them. But they are not based, they can cook anything because they are here based on skill. So there's cooking, blanching, automated clay pot machine. Ramat, say hello, say good morning, say good morning.
Good morning, hello.
Right. Yeah, so they are all here, and there's a drink store with a bakery store, which
good morning.
Neil can show you how to do good morning in sign language.
And those of you who are on the radio, not watching on Facebook Live, we're getting a wonderful tour of the Dignity Kitchen in Boon Keng.
So
and there's 7 different stalls inside the large room. Looks a lot like a hawker.
And it's
center.
a very
it's a hawker
nice,
store. It's just
clean.
Then we got cleaning area, but I want to show you my farm. Okay, the farm was created for autistic kids because they can do very good. They are very good gardener. You know, the government talking about urban farm, right? Where are the farmers? So this is how it looks like.
Wow.
So you see, that's my manager. Okay.
So he's got within Dignity Kitchen, there is also Dignity Farm, which is a small farm for folks with special needs. Seng Choon, we have to wrap this up. So one final question.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. By all means, keep showing us the stalls. But the most important question for Singaporeans listening that I'm going to ask is, how is your food so good and so affordable? I mean, because it's really good stuff.
You'll be surprised. Actually, in Singapore, after 60, nobody wants you, seriously. So all this you see are professional chef who's helping me to train. My trainers are Singapore Airline girls. There's a sell-by date for people in 60. I'm 63, by the way. So I got all these people. But what people don't understand, the older they are, the better they are. And that's why I got them all. But so I'm looking for, by the way, if you're helping me, I'm looking for young people now to take over this business. And I'm starting Dignity Kitchen London next, right? So maybe you guys got any connection in London. There are not many Singapore enterprise who can scale up like that.
Well, Seng Choon, you and I have spoke about this privately. You and I are going to set up Dignity Kitchen London together. I'm semi-serious about this.
That's great.
Let's see if we could do that.
No.
In the meantime,
we are going to do it for refugees and war veterans. That's the idea.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. That too.
All right, Seng Choon, just wrap it up. Please give people your address. Where should they come to your Dignity
69
Kitchen?
Boon Keng Road. It's a big warehouse. You can't miss it. It's a red bag warehouse. And then come with your family, have lunch here. We are open every day. All right?
Beautiful.
Anyway, thanks very much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. Koh Seng Choon, Executive Director, Dignity Kitchen in Boon Keng. Go and support this wonderful cause. Thanks for setting that up, Neil.
By the way, that's my GM. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Singapore Homebrew on Money FM 89.3. Saturday morning on Money FM 89.3. You're cruising through your weekend on Money FM 89.3.
Money FM 89.3.
Traffic.
And there's been an accident on Pongal Road near Pongal Field, Pongal Road Junction, so be careful there. Roadworks all over the island, so travel carefully if you can. And on the causeways, Woodlands, traffic is building, folks. 42 minutes into JB, 15 into Singapore, and at Tuas, 38 minutes into Johor and 19 into Singapore. That's your traffic.
If you see anything on the roads that we might have missed, you can share it with us via SMS or WhatsApp at 8855-0893. But please send the message through only when you are safely parked.
Singapore, are you ready for a day of world-class martial arts action? On November 19th, One Championship returns to Singapore for the final time in 2022 with an epic doubleheader for the ages. At 8 a.m., fuel your day with One Fight Night 4, Abisov vs. Lee, and at 6 p.m., immerse yourself in back-to-back electrifying bouts at 1-163 Akinoto vs. Petanong with athletes like Singapore's very own Christian Lee, Thai megastar Rotang Jitpanong, and more. This is one event not to be missed. Grab your tickets now at ticketmaster.sg.
Saturday morning, only on Money FM 89.3. Saturday mornings from 9 a.m. to 12 noon every Saturday. Only on Money FM 89.3. You're with Money FM 89.3.
Passports check. Foreign currency check. Oh no, I think I forgot to lock my front door.
Luckily, I can check the status of my door through my digital door app.
Wow, you can even lock and unlock your door with the app.
Yes, and I got this from Undigital Lock. They're having year-end sales across their 3 showrooms, Trade Hub 21, Nordcom 2, and AZ at Pai Labor.
Let's go now.
Or call 6966-6788.
A miracle key to the perfect home. Undigital Lock.
Undigital Lock, your key to a perfect home.
Point 3.
Welcome back to the show. So happy to have everybody with us today. This beautiful Saturday morning so far. Going to rain a little bit later in the day, so do take care. Wonderful segment with our good friend from Dignity Kitchen.
Yep, Koh Seng Choon, the executive director, founder of Dignity Kitchen. Genuinely inspirational and quite the character. Not surprisingly, lots of comments coming in. LL Tan passed by the building before. No idea it's a hawker center.
Yeah,
we'll
me too.
definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Please do that, LL Tan. Stanley C, very poignant. Soon Cheng, thanks for sharing. I know this best. I have a special needs son who I find it difficult to take out, not because I don't want to, but because he will have a meltdown every time there is a crowd, and it's extremely difficult to handle him now that he's 20 years old. Completely empathize, Stanley. Take him down to Dignity Kitchen. He'll have a great, affordable meal there, I can assure you, and the staff will look after him very, very well indeed.
Our friend Cecilia Gaspar saying, amazing Dignity Kitchen. Indeed, it is. Whether you're here or in Hong Kong, you can go and visit them. Well, let's move on. The FIFA World Cup is beginning in just over a week's time. 64 matches happening, of course, in Qatar. And I think we're going to try to get our guest on.
Yep, we'll put a guest on. Very important. World Cup starts next week in Qatar. All 64 matches will be live across Singapore on the various digital and streaming platforms in Singapore. So let's get him on.
Let's do it. Joining us, the Chief Consumer Business Group of Consumer Business Group. So let me start that again. The Chief of the Consumer Business Group at StarHub, Johan Buse, is with us. Great to have you with us today. How you doing? Are you excited about football?
I am always excited about football, Glenn, and good morning, Neil. Nice to see you again. How are you?
Great to have you on. And we wanted to get right into what's happening with what everybody wants to know the most, which is how to watch the World Cup. And what is that experience going to be like this year, Johan? Take us through it.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the question, Glenn. By the way, in between, your last name is, I need to explain it to you, it's a Dutch last name, but anyway. So
it is.
How can you
I was
watch
Dutch
the World
350 years ago. So there we go. All right, carry on.
All right, welcome. No, you can actually watch it this time very easy in the shape of an OTT. So you can just either download the TV Plus app or you get a box. There's no subscription, one time. And what is different this time around in the viewing experience is similar to what we actually do with Premier League. So you will have the live stats and all the other things which you want to sort of do yourself. So there is interactivity and everything around that, and obviously great quality viewing. That's the plan.
Now, Johan, the reason I wanted to get you back on again, firstly, I was very impressed with you the last time you came on because we asked you some pretty tough questions and you were quite upfront about it.
Yeah.
As we move into the streaming age, you did it with the English Premier League. How is a platform like StarHub adjusting to deal with the changing viewing demands and habits?
Well, we went through a learning cycle, no doubt about it. And as you can see, we run a very steady performance at the moment. What we take as feedback from customers is, I would say, two elements. Number one is technical viewership in terms of how people can experience the product. And second is the pricing. So first on the technical element. So I think people want to watch, as we said, things differently. So we have all the live statistics, you have the interactive timeline, you got time shift, which is also something actually we get a lot of positive feedback from customers because it always happens like people fall asleep or something like that, or they're about to fall asleep, or they have to go whatever do. So they can actually just press hold. They come back 5 minutes later and they just follow the game in their own pace, if I can call it that way. So there's no disruptions. That's number one. Statistics is another one which people really value. And then I promised you last time you get things like party watch and multi-angle camera viewing. That's coming actually in December. So that's coming quite soon. Yeah, that's the fun part because then you can really be your own director. And in terms of pricing, look, if you look at World Cup pricing, let's zoom in on World Cup. I mean, in actually 12 years, the price only increased by 5%. I mean, and I was listening earlier on to some of the things which are happening in the world. 5% over 12 years is unimaginable in terms of price increase. It's a monthly price increase for a lot of stuff these days, right? So we've really worked very hard. That's why it came in a bit later than what we wanted, because we wanted to really make sure we had the right price offer for the customer. So you can imagine in the back that required a lot of discussions, negotiations. And then the other thing which we really wanted to offer to customers, so that's fully flexible, by the way. You can buy that, you can do whatever you like. It's a one-time. You had the early bird offer, you got the regular offer right now. But separately, because there's a lot of people we noticed who like multiple sports. So we have the T20 running at the moment as well in terms of cricket. So what we thought is, okay, you know what, we'll bundle everything together. So for 52.40, you actually have Sports Plus, as we call it. That comes with cricket, all the other football leagues, Formula One. And you basically buy, for example, an Asian entertainment pack, which comes with View. And then you get Premier League for free, World Cup for free for the whole period, as long as you like. So we try to make it affordable in many different ways. So price and technical performance.
That's a lot of TV you've got for people.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how much time people actually spend on watching sport. It's very passionate. So, I mean, Thursday afternoon, I hope I'm not, how to call that, offending anyone. When England was cricket, actually we had a lot of people in the office just watching it on their mobile, on their tablet, because you can watch it on multiple devices seamlessly. So it's interesting. Well, it's changing.
Hey, Johan, when you first introduced the service, I think it was when the Liverpool game
for the English Premier League,
for the EPL, and there were some questions or some comments from some of the viewers about latency and some of the things being delayed a little bit. Have those problems been worked out from the tech perspective?
Absolutely. There has been a massive amount of work. No beating around the bush on this one. Has been a humongous effort by the team. So you're talking about scale, you're talking about latency. So a lot of investments have been done to scale that up. Today, if you watch it, it's a perfect 4K. If you have the 4K option and you want to watch 4K, and latency is non-existent. I mean, there's always a little bit of latency. For example, if you broadcast a game from London, it has to go through some line. But I mean, between live and where it is displayed, of course, but it's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, just to add to that, no one's paying me to say this. I wouldn't say it if it was true, but I do think StarHub has finally caught up with the streaming trends of the world, the way that EPL is consumed now. You watch it on the go, you watch it bite-sized, you can pause it, you can replay it.
Exactly.
I can't praise the EPL product enough, but moving forward, I have to ask the question that all Singaporeans I've been asking, and I've been here for 20 plus years, and it keeps happening. Why does broadcasting rights, when it comes to major sports, it used to happen, I'm assuming, before you were in Singapore with the English Premier League, it's happened again with the World Cup. Why does the broadcasting rights agreement always seem to go right to the wire? This one seemed to get settled only 2 or 3 weeks ago.
It's called negotiation.
I mean, I know the literal reason why it's negotiations, but Singapore is very unique in this.
Yeah, totally. Well, let me explain this in the following way. I've been in and out on entertainment business for the last 14, 15 years. And there is something which people like in this industry, and it's called drama. It's not only with sport, but with any entertainment. So for some miraculous reason, always these discussions and negotiations run down right to the wire. And why is that? It's complex, especially this one, because we're talking about multiple parties. It's not just 2 parties in this particular case. And then obviously you have the content provider in this case, which has their own interest. And we have the interest of all Singaporeans in mind. So you could understand someone on the other side of the table says, I would like to have the most possible out of this, the maximum amount. And we think, oh, okay, guys, hold on. This is what, based on research, we believe consumers are willing to pay for this. And then obviously it comes down to a commercial assessment, what makes sense. And that is complex because there are different levels in terms of sub-rights, possibilities, yes, no, which you want to debate. So this one particular for major sports events, and we're not unique in that, by the way, in Singapore, it's across the world. It's everywhere the same, tend to be, unfortunately, a bit of last minute. So what we try to compensate on this one is that we immediately then, when we can go live, if I can call it that way, can start offering this to consumers. We offer it in a way that A, it's attractive for customers, but B, they can easily transact. So it's easy to buy online. That's the mitigation. But it is what it is. You're totally right, Neil.
Yeah. We're talking to Johan Buse, the
process, by the way. I had a lot of hair before this, but no.
Occupational hazard. Speaking with Johan Buse, the Chief of Consumer Business Group at StarHub. And Johan, you spent over 20 years in the telecom industry working in Europe, Asia, the Middle East. What do we still need to do in our Singapore ecosystem to be up to standards that we might find in Europe or North America or elsewhere? Are we missing anything? Are there still changes that need to be made? You talked about some of the new changes coming in December, specifically on the StarHub products, but where are we as a telecom society right now?
All right. I would thanks for the question, Glenn. That's a great question. I would like to maybe split the answer in 2 parts. So first go into the entertainment part. I think in terms of broadcast and technology, we came a long way. And I dare to say that for example, Premier League, we're the first one in the world to offer it in the way we're offering it, which is meaning it's OTT. And what is the benefit for that for the consumer? Because you're wondering, right? I had a wonderful IPTV box that works, so why bother me? Well, you can offer different functionalities which you can't do on IPTV. So the ones which we discussed earlier, like multiple angles, you're in control, party watch, shift, all these things, you can't do on IPTV. So that's number one. So we're actually cutting edge from a world perspective, no doubt about it. What we can do better, and you triggered me because one of the things we're really spending currently a lot of effort on is around the World Cup, the studio shows, if I may call it that way, because that's obviously enriching the game. So what is before the game, during the game, and after the game? So these the celebrities, you see with BPL and well. So that's something we spend a lot of effort on at the moment. So you will get a direct feed actually around the World Cup games from Qatar, with courtesy of BN, which is one of our partners we work with, who have access to the most famous players, the former players, the referees, the whole ecosystem in a pre-match and post-match studio. So that will give you this depth. So that's definitely a quality element, which I think in general, we can still improve on in the country. So that's coming for World Cup on that one. If you go to telecom on its own, so mobile connectivity, home broadband connectivity, I think in Singapore, we're so privileged, so blessed. There is no country besides maybe Korea No country in the world where you have such great connectivity, either on the fixed line or the mobile line. You just drive across the causeway, you'll see the difference, right? And it's one of those things we take for granted, but it's fantastic we have it here. I just want to highlight that.
Brilliant. And just a final question, more of a philosophical one. Looking ahead, I like to pick your brains. Yesterday on your StarHub box, my family and I were watching Enola Holmes 2, the new Enola Holmes. Now, my daughter went to the toilet and we paused it on the TV. And then she shouts from the bathroom, "You don't need to pause it. I'm watching it on my phone." So she's watching the movie on her phone.
Welcome to the digital natives,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
My wife and I are continuing to watch the movie in the living room, in different places. Just another example of streaming. I mean, looking ahead, where is this streaming journey going to take us? What further changes do you see in this industry?
Nice.
It will become hyper-personalized, I think, Neil, to your question. And it will, I mean, I always like to think as from a consumer point of view. What does the consumer want? I think the consumer, coming to your point, wants to be fully in control. It needs to be frictionless, seamless. If I go from here to there, I shouldn't be worried that anything gets disrupted or anything. Second, I think the personalization, the quality of recommendation will just enhance. So one of the things we're doing actually on the TV Plus box, and we have this TV Plus Pro box, by the way, which is with Bang & Olufsen surround sound, which is really beautiful because a lot of broadcasters start also to enhance on not only image quality, but also audio quality, so that you have a submersive experience. Now, why do I bring that up? It actually offers you a new range of experiences, and behind the scenes, what we're doing on that particular platform, which is slightly different than the other one, it's actually our sort of, more advanced one, is that we pull what we call metadata, which is you have, for example, we have Disney Plus, we got Netflix, we got our own channels, we got sports, you got BN, everything. It actually pulls from the lowest possible level all this data forward based on your viewing profile. This is, I'm talking future now, to recommend you, you have yesterday watched the T20 game. You probably, based on your profile, would like to see this. Today, that's happening within, for example, Netflix, right? If you have Netflix, it will recommend, but that's where it stops. What we're going to try to do is to say, it's across everything we offer as content, no matter where it comes from.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. That's brilliant. Okay, and finally, then, Glenn van Zutphen is his name. You're a Dutch gentleman. It's a Dutch surname. Do you know the origin of his name?
Van Zutphen. Zutphen is a small place in the Netherlands. Happy to, if Glenn wants to have more details.
Not that small. It's not that small, and it was an extremely important trade hub in the 17th century.
I love it. I love it.
3 major rivers converged there. It was the hub of trading in the Netherlands in the 1600s.
That's true. And the van in front of his name means from. So in the good old days, when people need to get a name, they got a first name and then say, I'll use the place where I live. So I am from there. So actually it means Glenn from Zutphen.
Brilliant. So Johan basically is from a small fishing village. Is that?
It's not on the coast.
I'll refrain from comments. It's a place.
It's a place. It's certainly a place. Brilliant.
It is a lovely village now. It's about 50,000 people.
Is it?
It's got a gorgeous town square. It's lots of tourists there.
But I've learned something. I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, it's about, what, 60 kilometers northeast of Amsterdam, I believe, somewhere. It's a lovely day trip from Amsterdam. I've been there once, many decades ago, but yeah, it's great.
Wow.
Well, Johan, let's go there sometime and have a nice beer out in the square, huh?
But yeah, we should go for watching a nice World Cup football game, I think. We can pick
there
one.
You go.
Brilliant.
What is your bet for the final? Of course, it's Holland versus someone.
No. I said Brazil, so I'll stick with Brazil. But I've got a feeling Argentina, Lionel Messi, could be last chance. Could be last chance. Let's see.
There we go. Johan, thanks for being with us. Johan Buse, the Chief of Consumer Business at StarHub. Appreciate it. Everybody can tune into StarHub for the 64 games of the World Cup starting next Sunday. Thanks, Johan.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thanks very much, guys. Take care. See ya.
You're cruising through your weekend on Money FM 89.3.
Starting today, residents can book an appointment for influenza vaccination with more than 580 general practitioners through a government health appointment system. At book.health.gov.sg/flu, residents will first type in their postal code to see a listing of participating clinics nearby. Participating clinics are on the Community Health Assistance Scheme, which provides Singaporeans with subsidized medical and dental care. Residents can then book a slot via the appointment system at the clinic of their choice. Anyone aged 6 months and older is eligible to receive a flu jab to reduce the risk of infection and its complications. The Rifle Range Nature Park was launched by the National Parks Board today to make the forests and trails more accessible to the public. Formerly a network of kampong trails skirting an abandoned quarry, the new 66-hectare park is the 8th addition to the Central Nature Park network, a ring of nature parks surrounding the central catchment and Bukit Timah nature reserves. Access through an overhead bridge from Beauty World Centre in Upper Bukit Timah Road, the park has rocky foot trails, bridges over natural streams, and even a viewing point perched atop the cliff of a granite quarry. It's also the greatest length of trails of all nature parks in the network, with more than 7 kilometers.
On Sunday. Do try to enjoy your Saturday and be safe out there. That's your Money FM 89.3 weather.
Traffic.
And they're still dealing with that accident on Pongal Road near Pongal Field, Pongal Road Junction, so be careful there. Roadworks all over the island now, so drive carefully. when you go out later. And how are we doing on the causeways? Woodlands, 40 minutes into JB, 16 into Singapore. Traffic building there. At the Tuas Second Link, 42 minutes into JB and 20 minutes into Singapore. So drive carefully, eyes on the road and ears with us right here on Money FM 89.3.
If you see anything on the roads that we might have missed, you can share it with us via SMS or WhatsApp at 8855-0893. But please send the message through only when you are safely parked. Helping you grow your money on Money FM 89.3. Money FM 89.3. Financial updates from the Business Times.
I'm Chua Tian Tian with some of the market stories that made the headlines this week. US inflation cooled more than expected in October, offering hope that the fastest price increases in decades may have peaked. According to official data, overall consumer prices rose 7.7% on year, down from 8.2% in September. Core prices, meanwhile, advanced 6.3%, pulling back from a 40-year high. On a monthly basis, the overall CPI advanced 0.4%, while core consumer price index increased 0.3%. Both increases and monthly rises were below the median economist estimates. Still, inflation remains much too high for comfort for the Federal Reserve, who had earlier this month indicated that rates will likely peak higher than what policymakers had previously envisioned. And the UK economy shrank in the third quarter, marking the start of what is expected to be a protracted recession. GDP fell 0.2%, making Britain the only group of 7 economy that has yet to fully recover from the pandemic. Households and businesses now face a bleak 2 years as the Bank of England and the government add to the cost of living crunch by tightening policy at the same time. The Bank of England, which has raised interest rates 8 times since December, says a recession is the inevitable price of bringing double-digit inflation under control. The slump could last until mid-2024 under one BOE scenario, making it the longest in records dating back to 1920. And finally, let's take a look at how the Singapore stock market ended the week. The Straits Times Index climbed 1.7% to close at 3,228 points on Friday as Asian markets rallied on lower than expected US inflation. The STI finished 3.1% higher for the week as it extended its winning streak for the 6th straight session. In the broader Singapore market, winners outnumbered losers 443 to 180, with 2.14 billion securities worth 1.93 billion Sing dollars traded. And that's your finance rep on Money FM 89.3. I'm Chua Tian Tian.
Those were your financial updates from the Business Times. This is Money FM 89.3, Singapore's most influential radio station. Saturday morning, only on Money FM 89.3.
Welcome back to Saturday Mornings with Glenn Van Zutphen and Neil Humphreys. So glad you're all with us in this 11 o'clock hour, 11:09 at the moment. And Neil, I'm getting really excited about our next segment.
I know you are. I can see it, my friend.
In just a couple of minutes' time, we're going to have on Nurul Suhaila, the Pencak Silat gold medalist for Singapore.
Yes.
And she's in the studio, and we can't wait to talk to her. But first, I think we should acknowledge so many of our wonderful listeners on the radio who are streaming us on the audio app and on Facebook Live.
And our guests, of course, our previous one, Johan, pointing out that you grew up in a tiny village in Holland, which you have just skirted right over, as if that you told me you grew up in a metropolis.
Oh, it is. It's
or you descended. I should say you descended. Your ancestors.
Yes.
Your Dutch ancestors. Yes, indeed. Lots of comments coming in. They will be watching the World Cup. Lots of comments about Dignity Kitchen. Of course, our previous guest, wonderful, who set up Dignity Kitchen out in Boon Keng, which employs, well, not just employs, trains and employs the folks with special needs in Singapore, and also gives many meals away to both the elderly and the working poor of Singapore. That was a really inspirational story, that one.
Very inspirational, doing a great thing. And the food is great on top of it, right? We all know that we can't just go to a restaurant for the right reasons, but we need to have a good meal as well. So please do get up to Boon Keng and support Dignity Kitchen. Right across from the Boon Keng MRT.
Just come out.
Couldn't get there. Lots of parking nearby.
Right. Yeah.
All that. So it's all good. Let's see. Christopher Chang with us today. Hey, Christopher.
He'll be watching the World Cup.
Stanley C. Who wouldn't watch the World Cup, Stanley asks?
Well, this is a contentious point because many people not many, generalize, some people will not be watching this World Cup for the human rights reasons, for the corruption reasons, and for the fact it's just at the wrong time. This is the first World Cup that's ever been played in the middle of the European winter. It's the wrong time of year. It's the first time it's ever cut into regular seasons. So all of your major leagues around the world have to go on hiatus. It's absurd, literally absurd, that they're going to play their last games on this weekend, today and tomorrow. And then the World Cup starts the following weekend. It's
because usually they get a big break,
at least a month.
Yeah,
at least a month.
Because you need to rest. And...
Well, most seasons finish in May. And the World Cup usually begins in the second weekend of June, goes through June, July. It's not all about Europe. Don't get me wrong, but from the TV point of view, Europe and the North, those Western markets, it's their summer, so it's longer evenings to watch the match. Everyone's going to be at work in the West. It's going to be dark by 4 p.m. So you can't have barbecues. These have massive knock-on effects for all of the economic
cultural
ecosystems. Your barbecues, your pubs, your restaurants, your live events and all that. Massive knock-on effects. France, to use one example, are not even having any live events in Paris.
Wow.
As a protest against the World Cup. The human rights issues and so on and so on.
Yeah.
And there are various LGBTQ groups, minority groups who are protesting the World Cup as well. So as a PR exercise, it is an unmitigated disaster. There's no way of soft selling it. Advertisers are being coy, you know what I mean? Sponsors are involved, but they're pulling back slightly. It is going to be the weirdest World Cup ever.
One of the things that that we often talk about sport, obviously, you being a sports journalist by training and by avocation, but we also talk a lot about sports in Singapore and how we're trying to support the development of our sports ecosystem here. Any number of guests encouraging parents to let their kids get out and play sports, to think of it as a career, not necessarily just something they do in primary school or secondary school and then give up. And our first guest in this hour today is somebody I'm very excited to have on. She is the gold medal winner at the SEA Games for the sport of Pencak Silat. Joining us in the studio, Nurul Suhaila. It is so great to have you with us today. Welcome to the show and congratulations on your success in the sport.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here today.
Well, no, thank you for coming. And because you are representing a generation of Singapore sports people, men and women, who are really going for it in sports that you can excel in and that you can bring, let's face it, you can bring honor to the country and also honor to yourself. And I know that you had mentioned earlier you've been playing Silat since you were 6 years old. How did you first get involved in this sport, which is actually a very physical martial art?
Just to add, you don't play at Silat.
You beat the heck out of people.
You compete at Silat.
So I started at 6 after my brother and my sister. I'm the youngest one among 3. So I think I was too young to even decide if I wanted to play the sport. But I just decided to try because my parents were always supportive and at the training ground. All 3 of us were in the national team. So I wouldn't say it's a hobby. It's more like a family thing.
And were your parents involved? Did they participate when they were younger?
My mom was like the team manager of the club that I was from, and my dad he's taken like referee courses, so he's been to like a few matches. So I would say my whole family was involved. So
it's something your family really, you would love this sport. For years.
And that's a key point right there, isn't it? The family support from the very beginning.
Definitely.
So you grew up in a Silat environment, if you like, and I'm guessing parents were very supportive and nurturing from the very beginning.
Yes. And then, of course, parents are usually worried about, especially girls, like physical injuries and everything. But me and my sister actually went into the Singapore Sports School, and then we meet a lot of like athletes from around Singapore. So we decided that's the route that we're going to take.
Right. So you was the one in Woodlands you're talking about. So you went to the Singapore Sports School in Woodlands. Just so for the benefit of our listeners, so tell us about your siblings. So they took part at what level?
The World Championships, the SEA Games as well. But they quit about maybe 3 years before me. Yeah, so I'm the only one still in.
And are you the only medalist?
My brother and my sister, silver, bronze medalists at the SEA Games and World Championships. But yeah, I'm the only like gold medalist.
You're say it with pride. Come on, you're the only gold.
That feels good when you're having family dinner, on the weekend. Like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I was a late bloomer, so for me to actually be the one achieving the highest is
And
quite.
because you're younger, they can never catch you now, can they? Because they're retired. So.
Yeah.
Now, for those of our listeners and viewers on Facebook Live who aren't familiar with Silat, it's a martial arts form from this part of the world, traditionally practiced in Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Southern Thailand, Philippines, and South Vietnam. Give us kind of an overview of what you actually do. What could people relate to when they think about this sport, maybe compared to some other sports?
So the one that I'm in I'm in the combat category. So in Silat, there's two, one artistic and one combat. So artistic is the ones that you see more often in like weddings and the traditional Silat performances. But in
demonstrations.
But in competitive Silat, we actually do it in competition. So under 3 minutes, 100 steps. So that's
100 steps.
Yes. So you have to hit everyone around the world practice the same movements in under 3 minutes.
Huh.
So that's how they.
So the match is 3 minutes long.
No, for the artistic category.
Oh,
so
artistic.
the performance is 3 minutes long.
Got it.
So the one that I'm in is the combat section, which is basically sparring.
Yeah.
So a punch is a single point, a kick is 2 points, and a takedown is 3 points. So you fight and see who has the highest points.
So there are some similarities to other martial arts. I'm thinking of karate. You have the kata demonstration.
Yeah.
So that's
Muay Thai.
That's the Muay Thai. That's the artistic part, and then you have the sparring part,
Yeah.
which is points per punch and kick and so on. So
Yes.
a lot of overlap with other martial arts. Okay, what age were you when you realized you were pretty good at it?
I think maybe 13.
What happened?
I was in secondary one in Singapore sports school. So like I said, I was a late bloomer. I used to be very timid. My sister was the one in the front wanting to fight, but I was the one like hiding behind my mom. But I think at age 12, they sent me for an overseas competition. So that was my first international competition. And then I won both matches. My coach was so proud. He said I was the best performing athlete. So that was the age that I said.
Where was the competition?
Jakarta.
And same age group you were up against?
Yes.
Wow, that's impressive.
We're speaking with Nurul Suhaila, the Pencak Silat gold medalist at the SEA Games for Team Singapore, the national team. And if you passed Nurul on the street, you would think that she's a movie star, a TV star, somebody who a successful businesswoman, because your persona is so not what I think people would expect for somebody who is a combat Silat player. Do you get that a lot from people?
Yes.
Or is it just me? And I know it's maybe wrong to focus on looks and all of that when it comes to sport, but I mean, this is a really tough sport. I mean, seeing some of the videos of you doing this and seeing some of the photos, I mean, this is a bruising martial art.
It is, and I get that a lot, but I feel like that's an advantage for me then.
Well, I was going to ask that.
The wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Do people sometimes get the wrong idea when they see you warming up? They think this is going to be an easy one. And then, so how do you play with that advantage?
I guess, no, to me, I just stay like authentic to myself. I mean, I like what girls like, makeup, dressing up. So I keep that separate. But in the arena, I feel like I'm someone else.
Yeah.
So.
When you're preparing for your match, how do you tap into that inner rage that you need to have to go in there and dominate your opponents? I assume it's some sort of inner rage, but you maybe you could tell me what it is for you.
I guess my pre-fight rituals. I feel like I'm a isolator. So few matches before, maybe 5 to 6 matches, I don't talk to anyone at all.
Yeah.
I stay plugged in, listen to music, and just like visualize, go through the movements in my head, the techniques I want to do. And I just have to have a bar of chocolate and then I'm good to go.
Bar of chocolate. What's on your playlist when you listen to music?
Mostly like hip hop, R&B, pop, possibly.
Yeah.
And when this SEA Games was in Hanoi, right?
Yes.
That was your first gold, but you've been
Yes.
to several games before where you just fell a little bit short, bronze medals, I believe, right?
Yes.
Where did you find that drive, that determination to keep going? And was there any point where you thought, bronze. Maybe this is not for me. What kept you going?
For me, I feel like I'm a very patient person. So when it comes to something that I really want, I don't mind trying again and again and again. So just like my world championship title, I got a bronze and then a silver and then a bronze again and then finally a gold. So when I entered the SEA Games, I told myself like, okay, this is going to be the same outcome. I might have gotten 3 goals for 3 consecutive games, but like this time I would make it different. So I play in a higher weight class though, about like 10 kilos higher. But
Explain what that means for the audience.
So when the SEA Games is hosted in a certain country, the country decides the classes that they want to open. So in Vietnam, they only open 2 classes, which is the 65 to 70 and 70 to 75. So I had, if I wanted to be in the SEA Games, then I have no choice. I have to gain that weight. So I went up,
So this is the equivalent of a boxer jumping up a few weight divisions too. And how did that play out for you? I'm assuming it's a natural disadvantage, right? Because what did you have to do? Bulk up, eat more
Yes,
protein?
definitely. But I feel like throughout my years in Silat, I've gotten used to it. I've lost the previous SEA Games. I was 10 kilos lighter, but now I'm 10 kilos heavier. So I did have to bulk up. Of course, we go to the gym, eat more. But yeah, I still train twice a day. So I think the only part is eating more because I'm not a big eater.
That's the point right there. I know Singaporean listeners, Kiasu parents, when you said I have to train twice a day, that already has parents breaking out in hives. So the big question is, how do you balance the work, your actual job or your studies, whatever it may be, with the training? What's your secret?
I had a tough time when I was doing mass communications in Ngee Poly.
I used to teach there, Ngee Poly. Fantastic. We love Ngee Poly.
So I used to go to school there and then juggle going overseas fighting and then training after every lecture. I don't know. It was so hard, but I feel like I had like a goal in mind. So that wasn't hard for me. If you have a goal in mind, then working hard isn't that. So Silat now is my job. So to me, I'm very grateful. I'm so lucky to have just Silat to focus on and juggle.
So it's full time for you at the moment. So you get how does that work? Grants from the association, funding? From
yes,
the
so
government?
I'm under spec scholarship program. So we get like monthly stipend as well. So basically a job.
Awesome. We're talking with Nurul Suhaila, the Pencak Silat gold medalist for Team Singapore, the national team in this last SEA Games earlier this year. Let's talk a little bit more. I know you went to the sports school, so automatically you're pushed into being able to study and practice a little bit more, etc. All that. But when we look more broadly at Singapore and students who want to maybe pursue sports, there is still a lot of pressure from parents to get a quote real job, right? Become a doctor, a lawyer, a business person, or whatever it is. What changes or trends do you see any happening in Singapore and more open-mindedness toward sport as a career?
I feel like over the years, I think since we've gotten more support, more funding in the sports industry, that's when I think parents start to like, okay, I don't have to worry so much if my daughter, my son just wants to do sports. So when I was growing up, I think I wasn't worried about that. All I wanted to do was train and be better and then see where that takes me. So I feel like if your son, your daughter has that mindset that they want to achieve something in the sport, then I feel like supportive parents can just look into it and see other athletes. There's a lot of successful athletes in Singapore, I feel.
Now, for those not on Facebook Live, a slight twinkle in your eye there when you said supportive parents, as if you're like almost a bit of sarcasm. So are you suggesting that's the key area here that we really need to focus on, getting parents to support their kids?
Yes, because I mean, it's already hard in the industry for you to juggle sports and work, sports and school. So I feel like my support system has been phenomenal. So if I didn't have like a good support system, I don't think I would have pushed myself to be where I am today.
Wonderful. And I just want to ask you about the other support, the support in the stands. Singaporeans generally now, we have so much competition for the entertainment dollar. We can go to the theater, we can go watch the Slingers, we can go watch EPL on TV, we can do so many things. What is the support like for at Silat events? Do you get good crowds? Is it growing? Is it expanding?
I feel like the clubs in Singapore are still enthusiastic about the sport. So when we have like local competitions, there's still a lot of people watching it on live or actually in person. But I feel like in person is the one that impacts an athlete the most.
Of course.
We feel your energy, we feel your voice there. So
And
it's different.
Is there more that can be done in your opinion? Do we need more support? Or where do you think we're at with that?
I
Spectator
think
support.
we're doing good, but of course we can always improve on that. And just have people look more into sports.
Yeah. Support your local athletes.
Yeah, one of our Facebook live friends, Aloysius Lee, says, congrats and well done, Nurul. And then he posted a clip of your gold medal performance with Malaysia City. And he goes, wow, seems brutal.
Thank you so
can
much.
those of you on Facebook Live can click on that link. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. But yeah, it's when you watch this video, you're like, oh my gosh. Because it almost looks like a combination of sort of MMA and Muay Thai.
Yeah.
Right. Is that an accurate?
Yeah, I
way
feel
to say
like
it?
that's an accurate I would say combo that you would tell someone who doesn't know Silat.
But it's a little more stylistic. It has a little more class to it because of some of the movements you do.
Yeah,
right?
I feel like it's more safe because we don't hit the face. But of course, in combat sports, you do get hit in the face no matter what. But it's just an illegal move for us.
And for all those terrified parents listening, what are some of the injuries or hits you've had over the years? I'm sure there's been a few.
I get bruises on a daily.
Daily basis. Wow.
Yes. So that's not something that I worry about anymore. I just have bruises all the time. It's just people passing by, maybe they don't see it as like. I've gotten comments like, "Are you? Is everything okay at home?" It's kind of funny, but I get bruises on a daily. But other than that, like maybe broken hands.
Say no, I'm surrounded by Silat fighters. My house is all Silat fighters.
I love that. You know, after when you compete, and the video I've seen, especially of your gold medal winning performance, you know, you go through this brutal contest, and then afterwards you're smiling. You know, you might have just executed a major blow on your opponent or your opponent on you, and you get back up off the ground and you're smiling. It's like, is this just your mindset about it? Or
I
mean,
feel
it
like
has to hurt, right, at some level.
No, but when I'm in the ring, I think it's the adrenaline. I don't feel anything. So what I'm doing is just really enjoying the fight. And then after, when you walk out or wake up the next day, then you'll probably feel like got hit by a truck.
And do you have, I know athletes and martial arts exponents do you have like signature moves, favorite moves? What ones do you like?
Me, my signature moves are probably my strength. So I think I'm known for the front kick, and I'm pretty good at takedowns.
Yeah, all very important, important for you.
Most points.
Now, I gotta ask, has anybody outside, let's say on the street when you're out in the evening, has anybody come up to you in an inappropriate way and paid a price for it?
No, I feel I'm not a very confrontational person or violent person in that sense.
Yeah.
But I feel like just having a background in martial arts just gives you the confidence to know that you can protect yourself, defend yourself. So I think I'm pretty brave when it comes to any weird confrontations.
Brilliant. Well, SEA Games champion, what happens next for you in 2023?
I'm looking at another SEA Games in Cambodia, and then we have the World Championships in Indonesia.
Indonesia. When is that? When's the World Championships?
We don't have the date set yet, but we're looking at probably maybe June, July.
And just briefly, how's your family about that? There's a great, I don't know if you've seen this great wrestling movie that makes me think of you called Fighting with My Family. Have you heard of this? No. It's based on the true WWE fighter called Paige, whose brother was going to be a wrestler first, but then she became much better than the brother, which sounds a bit like you. So are they fully supportive? There's no jealousy there or anything like that?
I hope not. But I feel like my siblings are supportive. And we don't have like rivalries at home because
you win.
Yeah, because like if I win, then they win. In that sense, our family. So there's no rivalry. It's just nice to have siblings in the same sport so they understand the journey that I'm going through, and yeah, my sister's now not in the sport anymore, which is sad because I used to travel with her to every country with her. She's my roommate and everything. But I learned to be on my own and have myself.
But they support you.
Yeah.
That's it. And they'll support
Absolutely.
you next year when you become the world champion.
Absolutely. Nurul, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Nurul Suhaila, the Silat gold medalist in the SEA Games for Team Singapore. Wonderful, wonderful effort and great training, and good luck in all your future matches.
Thank
and
you
come
so
back
much.
again after you become world champion. Don't forget us little people.
Yeah,
here on the
an
radio.
inspiration to all Singaporean athletes
Thank
out there.
you.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Singapore Homebrew on Money FM 89.3.
or there. Roadworks across the island, so as always, drive carefully. And on the causeways, Woodlands, 38 minutes into JB and 20 minutes into Singapore. And at the Tuas Second Link, 39 minutes into JB and 20 minutes into Singapore. As usual, folks, drive carefully, eyes on the road and ears with us right here on Money FM 89.3. That was your traffic.
If you see anything on the roads that we might have missed, you can share it with us via SMS or WhatsApp at 8855-0893. But please send the message through only when you are safely parked. Saturday morning, only on Money FM 89.3.
Welcome back to Saturday mornings on Money FM 89.3, 1137. Glenn Van Zutphen and Neil Humphreys with you for about another 20 minutes or so. And I am so psyched at the show we've had today because, you know, the social projects, we've athletes, we've talked geopolitics and business. Darn it, I'm excited.
We cover a lot. There's no other show in radio that covers the breadth, the depth, and the diversity as this one.
You know, a number of friends over, you know, occasionally will ask me, it's like, you know, they know that both of us work full time every day, you know, during the week. You and I are very busy. You're doing writing and TV projects, and I'm doing my executive coaching. And they're like, how do you have time and energy to do the radio show on the weekend? And I'm like, yeah, you know, it's a bit of effort to talk for 3 hours. Not that we, you know, you and I can do that all day long, but it's because of the guests we have and the stories we talk about. It's energizing to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Do you feel the same way?
I agree completely. Yeah. The show is only as good as it gets. Guests, whatever. But no, it's true. And we've had great guests on today and uplifting ones as well, because the news hasn't been great just generally internationally in the last few weeks. So very positive, uplifting stories.
It's been a hard 6 months, 9 months in our news cycle for sure. Yeah. Suhaila, so Nurul Suhaila, who we just had on, the Silat gold medalist, heading off to the World Championships next year. And I love her messages about, look, you know, kids who love a sport just need to go and do the sport. Don't think about the end result. Don't think about being a gold medalist or an Olympian or whatever. Do it because you love the sport. Get in there and see where it goes.
The two key words, that it's not rocket science. Supportive parents. She even raised an eyebrow when she said it. Supportive parents. And it is as simple as that. As you know, my daughter, out of nowhere, has just developed a love of football. And okay, fine, play it. You know, 13, 14, from nowhere, she wants to play football. Okay, football.
Yeah.
Just found out yesterday, touch rugby is the next one. Okay, fine, touch rugby. Keep playing, keep active, team sports. I am 100% behind you, whatever it is. I'm not that dad.
Touch rugby.
I know, from nowhere.
Why not, though, right? Why not?
Of course, her friends are doing it. They hang out, they get bus to games. I love the camaraderie. Hey, I'd rather they were doing that than doing the multitude of other options that are available to them online and elsewhere.
You are absolutely right about that.
Fully behind sport, team sports, individual sports of any kind for teenagers.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Coming up tomorrow is, yesterday was 11/11, and most people know that as the big shopping day, and, you know, get online and get your deals and all that. And I guess those are just the times we're living in, that people automatically think of that. But for many decades, 11/11 has been the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month has been the commemoration of the Great War, World War I, and at the end of it, the armistice, and then of course, has come to be a broader day to honor the war dead and people that have fought in wars. And in Singapore, on the Sunday following 11/11, or closest to 11/11, they always have a commemoration at the Kranji War Memorial and the Kranji War Cemetery, led by the British High Commission and the Singapore Armed Force Veterans League, to honor those who fought and died in Singapore during especially World War II, but also there were quite a number in World War I as well. Joining us now on the phone to talk about tomorrow's service, which will be 7:30 a.m. To 8:10 p.m. at Kranji War Cemetery, is Commander Ashley Spencer. She is the UK Defense Advisor to Singapore. And good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Neil. I just need to correct you on my gender, if I'm
Sorry,
afraid.
sorry, pardon
It's
me.
all great. Thank you for good morning, everyone. And, thank you for letting me on your show, Neil. But yeah, you're absolutely right. This Sunday, we're going to be getting together and uniting. You know, the first time en masse since 2019, of course, at the Kranji War Memorial. And you know, part of that service is where we fall silent for 2 minutes and remember and commemorate those that have fallen, really to safeguard the freedoms that we all enjoy today. So it's a really special moment of reflection that it's not just limited to World War I and II. It really is about, you know, all our armed services of all our nations and how they've sacrificed their lives for our way of life, quite frankly. I mean, we really do enjoy quite a privileged position, particularly here in Singapore. So if any of your listeners are out there, we'd love to see you tomorrow morning. I know it's early, but any time from 7 o'clock, because we are expecting, you know, 700 to 1,000 people tomorrow. Wow. So everybody's welcome, but do come nice and early if you can.
And that's the key point, isn't it? That's the key point, Commander, isn't it? That, you know, Glenn made the point earlier, 11/11 to certain people now just means a good shopping weekend. And it's very important that we don't lose sight of A, the contributions, B, the sacrifice, and C, the need to constantly be reminded of those things and why they still matter in our society, giving us the lifestyle, the freedoms that we have today and enjoy and sometimes take for granted.
You're quite right. And what it is as well is a living thing, remembrance. And it's so personal to each and every one of us because we'll all have our own stories, our own histories. And to have the future join us tomorrow, that's really about the symbol that from all the conflict and from all the dangers of war and the horrors of war, it's about reconciliation. So we're going to have children speak. We will have a combined choir of Tanglin Trust, Dover Court, Dulwich College, Marlborough College have come down from Malaysia as well. And we look to our future because those sacrifices are so valued by what we enjoy, as you quite rightly put out there. And I just want, you know, we set aside in our busy lives just these 2 minutes to reflect on that time and what's actually important in our lives. So, I mean, you know, what does remembrance mean to you? If I gave you 2 minutes to think about the things that are important, what would you say?
Yeah.
We're speaking with Commander Ashley Spencer, the UK Defense Advisor to Singapore. Ashley, when we look at, when I talk to students especially, many students are, I think, drifting further and further away from understanding or remembering. So it's the wars, the various wars that have been fought over the many, many decades. And it's great to hear that you've got school students involved in this. When you think about the younger generation of folks that will be there tomorrow, what are the important messages that you would like them to take away from what is a very solemn moment at a very solemn place in Singapore, and one that, quite frankly, most Singaporeans and expats will not visit during the course of their time here?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, it's a very emotional place, and it does have strong ties, of course, to the Japanese occupation during World War II. Of course it does. But, you know, you raise a good point about those that might not have living ancestors that were necessarily connected in the same way as the past. So I have this message, above all else, and this is my personal view, and it's the one I used as my remembrance. You know, remembrance is not about one day. And to the next generation that come and live better lives, live a good life. That's the best way you can honor these people that fell in your name. Don't waste a day. You know, we all get grumpy, right? We all don't want to get out of bed some days, but time is precious. So be grateful and honor those that fell by actually just, you know, living the best version of your life. Don't be lazy. Help someone every day. And I think that's the best way of moving forward.
That's wonderful
Nice.
advice. We're talking to Commander Ashley Spencer, the UK Defense Advisor in Singapore. And you mentioned there the people who fell during the various wars. I think it's so important to emphasize, Ashley, that this is a jointly organized event by the British High Commission and the Singapore Armed Forces Veterans League. And this is to remember all soldiers from all walks of life, different religions, different backgrounds, different nationalities, and to remember collectively all of their sacrifices. Wouldn't that be fair to say?
Yes, again, you're absolutely on the mark there. It's one of the most diverse cemeteries in the world. You know, because of all race, creed, religion. So tomorrow, with the help of the Veterans League from Singapore, we'll have members of Singapore Armed Forces themselves, pipers from the specialist police force that work and live in Singapore. We're lucky enough to have Her Majesty's ship, or Australian ship, Adelaide, in. So Australian Defence Force personnel will be amongst the ranks of the Singaporean Armed Forces. It really is about that collective coming together and uniting, because unfortunately the horrors of war don't belong to one nation or race or religion. So really this is quite a symbolic place. But as but then it has to mean something as we move forward. So we are a point of reconciliation. Of course, this year is the 40th anniversary of the end of the Falklands conflict, particularly prevalent to the UK. But we will have veterans who live in Singapore that are going to be amongst that crowd tomorrow that have served in that conflict. So I think having our ambassadors and high commissioners from across the diplomatic community there, we want to make tomorrow as inclusive as possible. So you will see those that were from perhaps the opposition countries during some of those conflicts since World War I also getting there because of that need to reconcile our differences and look to peace.
We're talking with Commander Ashley Spencer, the UK Defence Advisor in Singapore, about Remembrance Day tomorrow, the annual service being held at Kranji War Cemetery at 7:30 a.m. till about 8:15 a.m. tomorrow. Everyone is welcome to go out to Kranji Cemetery and take part in that. We're getting to a moment in time when most of the World War II veterans have passed. And I do know how many might be there tomorrow. Any sense of that?
I don't have the exact figures actually on how many World War II veterans will be there.
You mentioned Falklands veterans maybe in attendance. Is that correct?
That is correct. But we certainly do have veterans from World War II. And the other thing about the generations that have been in between but have been touched by World War II, we've actually got groups coming all the way over from the UK, and Malaysia and Australia, quite large groups that were young people at the end of World War II, living in Singapore, going to school here, that are coming back, and many for the first time leaving, because we have quite a unique story. We've got, headmaster and former head boy buried there in the conflicts that came after the Second World War. So people are coming from all over the world tomorrow to pay their respects, and whatever remembrance means to them.
Wow, that's extraordinary. Beautiful. And I just wanted to ask you finally, you are a commander yourself. You was in the Royal Navy from 1999. You've done an extraordinary job yourself. You were a mine clearance diver. You were involved in the defense of Iraqi oil terminals. You evacuated civilians from Libya. I mean, it's an extraordinary career you've had yourself. Tomorrow morning, what will you reflect on? What does tomorrow morning mean to you?
So many of us, unfortunately, that serve still in the last sort of 20 years have lost friends and colleagues. So I'll be thinking of them.
Yeah. Fair enough.
What else can you do, right?
What else can you say?
And that's the most appropriate and fitting homage to those who have left us. I want to thank you so much for being with us. We do hope that folks listening today, if they've never gone out there, will go tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m., Kranji War Cemetery. And as we look past this Remembrance Day tomorrow, Commander Spencer, what else can folks do to keep the memory of those who've fallen alive, and to also keep alive the notion of, hopefully not repeating mistakes of the past?
It really goes back to what remembrance means to me and gets me off my backside in the morning when I'm feeling lazy or just being a bit grumpy. Is don't waste a day. And if you can do nothing else, help somebody else today. Because the little things matter. We can't all fix world peace overnight. But if we're all a little bit kinder to each other, and we think of others before ourselves, then I think we're doing the right thing. And what I would say is, if you are coming tomorrow, if you wouldn't mind just coming a fraction early, because we are expecting, pretty large numbers tomorrow. So if you'd like to come, you are so welcome. But please do try and arrive for 7 o'clock in the morning.
Arrive at 7. Good advice. Thanks so much for being with us today, Commander Spencer. We really appreciate it. We hope it goes well tomorrow.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
You're cruising through your weekend on Money FM 89.3.
Passports, check. Foreign currency, check. Oh no, I think I forgot to lock my front door.
Luckily, I can check the status of my door through my digital door app.
Wow, you can even lock and unlock your door with the app.
Yes, and I got this from Undigital Lock. They're having year-end sales across their 3 showrooms, Trade Hub 21, Nordcom 2, and AZ at Pai Labor.
Let's go now.
Or call 6966-6788.
A miracle key to the perfect home.
Undigital Lock, your key to a perfect home.
Saturday morning, only on Money FM 89.3.
Welcome back to the show. Our last few minutes of the show. Lots happening around town. Neil, what else you have going on for the rest of the weekend?
I will be writing. I've got to finish off. I'm halfway through this TV series that landed on my lap at the very last minute. I'm not complaining, but I'll be doing that over the weekend. Some very interesting profiles I'm writing up at the moment. Might even get 1 or 2 on the show.
Oh, there you go.
At some point. So that'd be good. I believe I only find these things out last minute anyway, that our daughters are meeting up again. I believe
those kids.
I believe it's tomorrow. That's about it. I think, yes. I'm doing my beloved housework, which I enjoy so much on a Saturday afternoon.
I've got so much of it you can do if you want to come over to my house.
And
too.
you, my friend, more importantly, are off to pay tribute to your lovely mother.
Yes. Well, it'll be a busy weekend before that happens. We're going to see the Guns N' Roses concert tonight.
Are you?
My kids have
Are they fans?
They must go see it.
Really?
Yes.
I'm very impressed.
Yes.
That they're fans of
their
that era.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They're fans. Welcome to the jungle.
Yeah.
Indeed. So we're doing that tonight, tomorrow, just a early Sunday. Monday, I'm taking my first business trip back to Hong Kong, Monday to Wednesday. So that'll be the first time since early 2020 that I've been there. So they still have some regulations. I got to go through what all the regulations are because they still have some. And then, yes, you're right. Later in the week, I'll be heading off to Chicago with my family for my mother's funeral, which will be a week from today. So we're gathering our extended families in Chicago for that. Looking forward to a great remembrance ceremony for a wonderful woman, 87 years on the planet. Raised 3 boys, was a Presbyterian minister, served at many churches around the Chicago area. And she always had a saying, wherever it is you grow, just bloom where you grow. So wherever it is you are, do what you can do and make the world a better place. So cheers to mom, and looking forward to seeing my family again. Not looking forward to the trip back and forth back to the US and then coming back in 3 days time.
You're just there for 3 days.
Yeah. So we arrive on Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday we come back to Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can't stay a day or 2 more?
The kids have school and,
Right.
we got lives here. So we got to kind of get back.
Of course. But
it'll be busy.
It'll be well worth it for the family. You'll all be together. You'll all be united. You should be together at this time.
Yes.
And I hope it goes as well as these things can go.
I'm sure it will be fine. So we will see. And I got to apologize. Your mic was off for a short time.
Yes, I've
during the
got
last segment.
comments coming in
Lots
left
of
and right.
comments. I'm doing a soliloquy. It was not on purpose. It was a mistake on my part. So I am owning up to that.
Apologies. Which segment was it?
I think it was just at the end, though, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
At the beginning of Commander Ashley.
Wow. Chantal Travers says you are live in store today.
Oh, thanks, Chantal.
Wow, thank you very much.
There you
That's very
go.
good indeed. Where is this?
Nice.
In a cold storage, no less. Well, thank you very much. It makes a change from that jingle that's playing incessantly across Singapore at the moment, driving everyone crazy. But I do want to say a big thank you to all of our wonderful guests while my mic works, and say they were all fabulous, all uplifting, all very positive. If you have a free moment this weekend or during the week, get down to Dignity Kitchen, have a meal. It's a good meal. You'll pay $6 or $7. You'll be served by people who just want their dignity. And you'll get a good meal. Get down and enjoy it at Dignity Kitchen.
Awesome. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Next weekend you are going to be treated to Neil and Dan Koh hosting the show.
I might just mute his microphone.
Let me show you how it's done after the show.
Yeah,
today.
show me how. I'll just mute. No, Dan the Man is coming back next week. A special guest
appearance.
Yeah, by popular request, i.e., me. Right.
Meaning you had nobody else to help you.
Yeah. I went down the list. No, it'll be me and Dan, and we will be paying tribute to Mr. Van Zutphen next week and his family.
Well, I will do my best to listen. I'm literally landing right about the time the show is starting. I'm landing in Chicago right about the time the show is starting. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to listen, but I will do my best to tune in for a little while. But anyway, all right, everybody. Hey, have a great, safe week. If you can get out to Kranji Cemetery tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. for the Remembrance Day ceremony, please do that. It only takes an hour or so. And then you'll have a chance to pay tribute to so many people who lost their lives in defense of Singapore. And otherwise, have a great week. We will see you in 2 weeks' time. You guys will see Neil next week. And enjoy your weekend.
Take care, guys.
So long.
You're cruising through your weekend on Money FM 89.3.